Lei Long and Hua Long roared, their voices shaking everyone's ears. When they appeared, all the experts' expressions changed. Five-color tribulation lightning? Heaven incinerating flame? They were all experienced top experts. As they recognized the origin of the lightning dragon and flame dragon, they hastily switched from offense to defense. Boom! Lei Long and Hua Long crashed through them and suddenly exploded. Their huge power blew all those experts away. They were all shocked. Even with divine items protecting them, they felt their blood flipping inside their bodies. If they hadn't had divine items, they would have at least lost a layer of skin, if not their lives. Sha Guangyan, Peng Wanxing, Yi Qingquang, watch out. Long Chen wants to kill you. One of the experts suddenly let out a startled cry. Within the sky full of exploding runes, a single figure was using them as cover to approach the three of them. Long Chen, do you think we're easy to bully? That Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing sneered, while Yi Qingquang roared furiously. The three of them extended their hands, and three divine items that had been in other people's hands suddenly appeared in their grasp. With three divine items and their primal chaos manifestations surging, they attacked Long Chen. Die! Boom! The full power of three Empyreans erupted. The instant their attacks were about to smash into Long Chen, an explosive sound rang out in the distance. Someone was coughing up blood and flying back, startling everyone. The Vice Palace Master. The one coughing up blood was the Divine Flame Palace's Vice Palace Master. One of his arms had been slashed off. Just at this moment, everyone realized that the Long Chen that Sha Guangyan, Peng Wanxing, and Yi Qingquang had attacked was nothing more than a flame clone. It's a trick. Only now did everyone react. Long Chen's target wasn't the Empyreans but the Vice Palace Master. The Vice Palace Master was busy maintaining this space, and he had no other divine items to protect himself. Protect the Vice Palace Master. They believed that if the Vice Palace Master was slain, the Brahma Divine Scripture would no longer be able to hold Long Chen. Then their whole enterprise would end in failure. Just as they reacted, a huge saber image appeared, slashing down with boundless killing intent. Split the heavens 5. The Vice Palace Master was pale. If this attack struck him, he'd be turned to dust. Long Chen was too fast and didn't give him any chance to breathe. The Vice Palace Master hastily waved his hand, and ripples appeared in space. This world shook as a huge barrier appeared around him. This was a defense created by the Brahma Divine Scripture. It had been this barrier that had also saved his life from Long Chen's first attack. However, this barrier instantly shattered when Long Chen's terrifying attack struck it. The saber image struck the Vice Palace Master, causing him to wildly cough up blood. His body almost exploded and he fainted. Long Chen was delighted and hastily shot forward, reaching for his neck. It seemed that the Vice Palace Master was unable to fully bring out the Brahma Divine Diagram's power and was only capable of capturing people inside this space. If he was able to use its full power, he would become the absolute ruler of this space, capable of killing anyone with just a thought. As long as Long Chen could capture the Vice Palace Master, he'd have gained a divine protective talisman and instantly reversed the tide. Scram! Just as Long Chen was about to reach his goal, a magical staff appeared in front of him. It was Qi Yunao. Qi Yunao had recovered from Long Chen's first assault, and he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood onto the violet gold soul-devouring staff. Divine light formed a large cross-shaped shield in front of Qi Yunao and the Vice Palace Master. Boom! Long Chen slammed into the shield and shot back like a shooting star. Popping sounds came from his bones as they almost shattered. Damn it! Long Chen cursed inside. Everything had depended on this, but now his plans were ruined by Qi Yunao. Having consecutively used the fifth form of Split the Heavens and the Double Dragon Destruction, he had used up the majority of his spiritual yuan. He was no longer in his peak state and wouldn't be able to create a second chance to capture the Vice Palace Master. Attack together! Sha Guangyan roared. He sensed that Long Chen's power was starting to drop after unleashing 3 of his strongest moves. This was their best chance to kill him. You want to kill me? It'll cost you your life. Lightning Spirit Explosion. A huge lightning sphere appeared in Long Chen's hands. He pressed down on it with brute force, and the destructive power exploded. 5-colored lightning shot out in every direction. This is 5-colored tribulation lightning. Quick, come and protect me. Sha Guangyan, Peng Wanxing, and Yi Qingquang's elders shouted out. They no longer had a divine item to protect themselves, and they were terrified of this lightning. This was annihilation lightning, and even if it didn't immediately kill them, once it invaded their bodies, it would be extremely difficult to expel. No one wanted to be infected by something much more terrifying than poison. Perhaps Empyreans would be able to slowly expel it, but Celestials were not capable of that, not even rank 9 Celestials. Sha Guangyan, Peng Wanxing, and Yi Qingquang hastily flew back to their elders, protecting them from the lightning. Everyone was using their divine items to protect themselves. Thunderous rumbling rang out, but they weren't injured. However, they were still shaken. They couldn't imagine that a single person would be able to control this much terrifying lightning. This 5-colored lightning had filled this world. It was practically endless. Within this endless lightning and thunder, divine chanting suddenly appeared. Long Chen was chanting up in the sky, and a huge flame sphere was growing in his hand. This was the Brahma divine diagram's world, but as he chanted, space became unsteady. This is the 2nd volume of the Nirvana scripture. How can he know it? The Vice Palace Master recovered thanks to Chiyuneo's protection, and hearing this chanting, he cried out in shock. The 1st volume was offered to any disciple of the Pill Towers to learn, but the 2nd volume of the Nirvana scripture was something only the core disciples of Pill Valley could learn. Each disciple who had cultivated it was recorded. It was not allowed to be transmitted at all. Somehow this was actually the 2nd volume of the Nirvana scripture. There was no mistaking it. The Brahma divine scripture was actually giving off a feeling of fear, shocking the Vice Palace Master. The flame sphere in Long Chen's hand rapidly grew. It became a 30,000-meter star blazing with light. Space was crumbling around it. That sight was horrifying. The world shuddered, and cracks began to appear. The Vice Palace Master hastily formed hand seals. Sweat covered his back. He begged, "Senior, please, you can't let him out. Please hold on just a bit longer." He was begging the item spirit of the Brahma divine diagram. It actually told him that it wanted to release Long Chen. But if that happened, they wouldn't be able to kill him. The Brahma divine diagram was uneasy. When Long Chen began chanting the Nirvana scripture, it felt a kind of sacred aura around him that made it afraid. "Attack together! Kill Long Chen!" shouted the Vice Palace Master. At this time, everyone recovered from their shock. Divine light began to shine from each of their weapons. Star fall. Long Chen's face was pale and he was breathing heavily. The huge sphere in his hand shot down. The sphere was like a star about to reach the end of its life and explode. A sensation of death spread as everyone's attack struck it. Endless destructive power erupted. Ripples of death spread throughout every corner of this world. The void exploded over and over again. Chaos reigned and a whirlwind of destruction unfurled. Long Chen was covered in black qi. This was the protective domain that Evil Moon had created to protect him. Evil Moon's 2 dragon images lit up, and a huge saber image struck the sky. Countless cracks appeared in the sky, but they quickly recovered and vanished. How regretful, it's still not enough. Just a bit more and we'd have been able to get out. This Brahma divine diagram really is hard to deal with, sighed Evil Moon. Just now, the explosion of Starfall had weakened the barrier of this world, and Evil Moon had taken that chance to attack it. However, it still wasn't enough to break out. It's fine. If we can't get away, we'll just pick off a few of them. Within this torrent of destructive runes, Long Chen saw a vague figure. Not caring who it was, he slashed his saber down. Boom! A miserable scream rang out as that expert blew apart, but Long Chen also coughed up a mouthful of blood. He felt the world spinning around him and he almost collapsed. Long Chen, face your death. Just at this moment, 3 figures charged at him, wielding divine items. Fuck, why is their luck so good? Long Chen didn't have any more energy. He was filled with unwillingness. The three of them were actually Sha Guangyan, Peng Wanqing, and Yi Qinghuang. The person he had killed was just some random expert. Just as Long Chen thought that his death was certain today, a fierce fluctuation came from his mind. See. Die. 3 divine items fell toward Long Chen at the same time. Sha Guangyan, Peng Wanqing, and Yi Qinghuang's expressions were all twisted. Only by personally killing Long Chen could they wipe away their humiliation. Long Chen had exhausted almost all of his spiritual yuan. His final trace of energy was only enough to drag one of them with him. Evil Moon was currently attacking the barrier, but it wasn't succeeding. Although it had some energy left, it would be useless against this many experts and divine items. Just as Long Chen thought that he was about to die, an intense fluctuation came from his mind. See. A cyan light enveloped Long Chen, forming a thick barrier. The 3 divine items smashed into the barrier, emitting blinding light. A powerful explosion sent Sha Guangyan, Peng Wanqing, and Yi Qinghuang tumbling back, their arms almost breaking. What? Everyone looked in shock to see a cyan brick slowly revolving around Long Chen. The cyan light was coming from the brick, protecting Long Chen. The heaven-flipping seal? Long Chen was ecstatic. He hadn't expected the heaven-flipping seal to awaken at such a time. The heaven-flipping seal had been in slumber ever since he had used the all-devil monster's soul essence to create a new item spirit. It had been nourished in his spiritual space the entire time. It was like a newborn who viewed Long Chen as a father. Seeing Long Chen injured, it unleashed terrifying divine might that spread like furious ocean waves. The heaven-flipping seal suddenly grew explosively, becoming 30,000 meters long as it smashed toward the experts. Block it together. The huge brick smashed down with such frightening power that Qi Yunao and the others' expressions all changed. All their divine items activated, and their attacks rained down on the heaven-flipping seal. Shockingly, all their attacks exploded on contact with the heaven-flipping seal. It continued falling mercilessly. They scattered in terror, but one elder dodged too slowly. The heaven-flipping seal smashed him to dust. His divine item was fine, but his yuan spirit was annihilated. Long Chen was surprised and delighted by the heaven-flipping seal's power. He was just about to direct the heaven-flipping seal to kill all these people when an angry roar came from Evil Moon. Hurry and stop it. It doesn't know how to use the power of its divine runes. If it attacks again, it'll use up all its energy. Have it come back and give me its divine energy. We'll smash this barrier together. The heaven-flipping seal's item spirit was like a newborn and didn't know how to control itself. It was simply using its anger to randomly strike with its power. That was wasting the majority of its power. Long Chen hadn't realized that, but Evil Moon was well aware of it. The heaven-flipping seal was like a powerful child. It had immense power, but no idea how to properly use it. 90% of the energy in its attack had been wasted, causing Evil Moon to want to curse. If Long Chen allowed the heaven-flipping seal to attack again, it would use up all its energy and would only be able to kill a few of these people. That was useless. If it used up all its energy, then they really would be doomed. Heaven-flipping seal, get back here. Long Chen beckoned, and the heaven-flipping seal obediently returned. It shrank and transformed into a cyan light that returned to his hand. Long Chen's soul was intimately connected to the heaven-flipping seal. He directly ordered it to transfer its divine energy to Evil Moon. The heaven-flipping seal didn't hesitate when it came to Long Chen's orders. Its runes lit up, and a pillar of light shot into Evil Moon. What the fuck will this even work? It's wasting all its energy. I can't even absorb half of it. Cursed Evil Moon. Stop cursing. The heaven-flipping seal is still a child and doesn't know how to use its energy, said Long Chen. Fine. I'll absorb it myself. Tell it not to resist. If all its energy is wasted like this, I won't be able to break this barrier. Evil Moon's black runes lit up, and a huge saber image appeared. The heaven-flipping seal quivered as it felt a powerful force absorb its energy. It instinctively resisted, but that instinct was suppressed by Long Chen. Divine energy poured toward Evil Moon. Having obtained the heaven-flipping seal's power, Evil Moon's 2 dragon images lit up. The roaring of a dragon could vaguely be heard. Boom! The huge saber image slashed into the huge barrier. Space exploded as the laws of heaven and earth were shattered. The sky suddenly shattered like ice, and a huge hole appeared. Long Chen was delighted to see that hole, but Chi Yuneo and the others' expressions completely changed. "Stop him!" roared Chi Yuneo. He coughed up another mouthful of blood onto the violet gold soul-devouring staff, launching the first attack. Even he was too late. The instant the barrier broke, the black saber image shrank and pulled in Long Chen. As for the others, they were dumbfounded that Evil Moon had broken the barrier. They only reacted once Long Chen vanished. "I'll remember everything you've done for me today." Long Chen's figure vanished, but his voice still hung in the air. Damn it! He actually got away. Chi Yuneo stabbed the violet gold soul-devouring staff into the ground and let out a furious bellow. This meticulous plan they had been preparing for so long had still failed. The other experts looked at each other, all seeing each other's fear. Long Chen would definitely get his revenge for this. Other than Chi Yuneo, the others had powerful families or sections. On the other hand, Long Chen didn't have anything to cause him any misgivings. He didn't fear anyone. Now it seemed they might have doomed themselves. Who knew when Long Chen's revenge would come? Thinking of Long Chen's viciousness, his heaven-shaking combat power, and his bottomless trump cards, they all felt a chill. "Vice Palace Master, you should hurry and contact Heavenly Fate Island to calculate Long Chen's next position. Otherwise, we'll be forced to live in constant fear," sighed an elder. He regretted coming now, but regret was useless. The Vice Palace Master waved his hand, and the world changed. They reappeared outside the Shah family's city after he put away the Brahma Divine diagram. His expression was extremely unsightly. Even with the Brahma Divine diagram, Long Chen had gotten away. That cyan brick in his possession was absolutely terrifying. Furthermore, he felt like he had heard of it from somewhere, but he wasn't able to remember. The thing that made him the most uneasy was that Long Chen could use the second volume of the Nirvana scripture, and when he used it, even the Brahma Divine diagram felt uneasy and afraid. The Vice Palace Master could also use the second volume of the Nirvana scripture. The scripture was the same and the rhythm of the chanting was identical, but when Long Chen used it, he felt an innate feeling of reverence. That made him feel extremely uneasy. Long Chen had too many secrets. Previously, he had heard that Long Chen knew the first volume of the Nirvana scripture, but he had never heard that Long Chen could use the second volume. Where had he managed to learn it? Vice Palace Master. Seeing the Vice Palace Master silently standing there with a dark expression, someone finally called out. What did you just say?" The Vice Palace Master finally came out of his thoughts. "I said you should go alert Heavenly Fate Island to calculate Long Chen's next position. We should kill him now while he's still heavily injured. Otherwise, none of us will be able to rest easy," repeated that elder. The Vice Palace Master bitterly smiled. "Heavenly Fate Island's people are too arrogant. I'm not qualified to speak to them. In truth, their help this time was thanks to the Valley Master personally asking, or Heavenly Fate Island wouldn't have bothered with us. All right, I'll go report to the Valley Master. Long Chen must be eliminated." "If Long Chen takes revenge during this time," said the elder worriedly. "Don't worry, Long Chen will be frightened by this experience. He'll definitely hide for a while. Furthermore, the Valley Master has his own arrangements. We just need to wait for his orders. I'll be leaving first." The Vice Palace Master didn't give anyone a chance to argue before leaving. Staring in the direction he went, the other people's expressions became unsightly. Long Chen was too vicious. None of them could handle his revenge. Unfortunately, he had already escaped, and there was nothing to say. They could only place their hopes on Pill Valley. Each day during this time would be like torture as they waited for Long Chen to come to their doors. The void crumbled, and Long Chen fell from the sky. He saw stars spinning around him, and he fainted. Endless darkness descended and that familiar voice appeared once more. Long Chen felt himself to be drifting within the endless cosmos, with time and space frozen. "I can sense you once more." The ancient voice rang out. Long Chen didn't say anything. He had already gotten used to this. Even if he spoke, the other side wouldn't hear him. He couldn't be bothered any longer. Although I don't know where you are, I can sense your existence. However, the barrier between the 10 planar worlds is weakening, and space-time is chaotic. It's difficult for me to transmit my voice to you. Perhaps you've already gotten tired of hearing this, but let me repeat myself. Time is running out. If you cannot grow up before the 10 planar worlds are destroyed, everything will be over. The endless darkness faded and Long Chen opened his eyes. Rubbing his face, he self-mockingly said, I can't even look after myself right now. How am I supposed to look after the 10 planar worlds? What a joke. This voice had first appeared in the Phoenix Cry Empire. But even now, he didn't understand what it was saying. Each time, the voice said time was running out. But so what? What did it have to do with him? He was busy struggling on the border of death himself and couldn't bother with that. Sometimes, he even suspected the voice had gotten the wrong person. Perhaps it had gotten mixed up with someone else called Long Chen? Suddenly, his spiritual space shook. The heaven-flipping seal appeared in front of him, and it unleashed waves of cyan light that enveloped him. Thank you. If it hadn't been for you, I'd have been doomed. Long Chen patted the heaven-flipping seal gratefully. This time had truly been too dangerous. If the heaven-flipping seal hadn't woken at the right time, he would be dead. If he had to die, then fine. But falling into their hands would mean death would become something very luxurious for him. They would definitely make him live a life worse than death. The heaven-flipping seal's cyan light revolved around him. It was like a child trying to hug him. Its item spirit was created by Long Chen, and it had a great dependence on him. There was no need to doubt its loyalty. Otherwise, a divine item wouldn't allow its divine energy to be sucked away by another. The quality of this brick is good. It's a very decent half-step divine item. However, its original item spirit died, and the new item spirit doesn't understand how to use its power. It can only be used to blindly smash others, said Evil Moon. Then it'll be up to you. Long Chen smiled. Up to me? You couldn't possibly expect. Of course. Teach the heaven-flipping seal how to use its power. Only you're capable of that, so it's up to you. Why would I bother teaching it? I don't have the patience. Evil Moon directly refused. You will teach it. If you want to get stronger, if you want your seal to be undone, if you want to return to your former glory, you'll have to depend on it, said Long Chen confidently. Although he didn't fully understand divine items, he had learned much during this time. For the safety of the master, as well as the safety of this world, divine items had to be restricted. Otherwise, if a divine item were to betray its master, it might destroy this entire world. However, the heaven-flipping seal was different. Long Chen hadn't placed any restrictions on the heaven-flipping seal when creating its item spirit. Other divine items had a trace of their spirits controlled by someone. Once the divine item went out of control, destroying that trace of spirit would destroy the item spirit. This was the contractual binding on divine items. Divine items were just too powerful. If they betrayed their masters, they could bring about an apocalypse. But Long Chen hadn't done the same to the heaven-flipping seal. The heaven-flipping seal had no restrictions and was capable of fully unleashing all of its power, which resulted in such a terrifying force. It was just that it still didn't know how to use its power, otherwise, its first attack wouldn't have killed just one person. It was very likely that other than Chi Yuneo, who was in possession of the powerful violet gold soul-devouring staff, all the others would have died to it. That was why Evil Moon had cursed it for being stupid. If Long Chen had simply allowed it to blindly smash its opponents, they wouldn't have been able to get away. However, while not restricting it gave it greater power, it also was extremely dangerous. If one day the heaven-flipping seal wanted to leave Long Chen, without any restriction, Long Chen wouldn't be able to stop it. He might even be killed by it. The reason other people's divine items weren't able to unleash their true power wasn't because they weren't strong enough, but because they were restricted. Their power was under the control of Life Star experts, and because Life Star experts weren't strong enough, they were only able to unleash a portion of that power. If they tried using power beyond their control, there would be a danger to their own lives. Furthermore, Due to this restriction and a portion of their spirit being under someone else's control, the intelligence of those divine items was restricted. They would be like children and wouldn't have many thoughts about wanting freedom. Although this limited their power, it was safe. As a result, practically all divine items were like this. This included Evil Moon. A trace of its spirit had been extracted by Sovereign Yun Shang and sealed. If Long Qin didn't undo its seal, its spirit would never return to a complete state, and it would never reach its peak again. The sovereign blood hadn't just sealed Evil Moon's power, but it was also the key to Long Qin being able to control it. Although Long Qin had a deal with Evil Moon, the initiative was still in Long Qin's control. "What do you mean?" demanded Evil Moon frostily. "I don't mean anything in particular. I'm not threatening you. You know my character, and you know I disdain doing such a thing. It's simply that helping the heaven-flipping seal is also helping yourself. Once I'm strong enough, I will undo the seal and return your freedom," said Long Qin. "Really?" Evil Moon's voice quivered slightly. "I disdain lying. I can return your freedom, but you'll need to promise me not to bring disaster to the martial heaven continent." "You can simply return to wherever you came from," said Long Qin. "You're not tricking me?" demanded Evil Moon. "There's no need for me to do that. You might be strong, but you aren't even able to defeat a sovereign. You won't be able to stay with me for long," said Long Qin indifferently. "What is that supposed to mean? Are you abandoning me because I'm useless?" Raged Evil Moon. "You're too sensitive. I'm not looking down on you. It's just that my goal is to surpass the sovereigns. This is Sovereign Yun Shang's expectations for me. If I am not able to surpass the sovereigns, I'll die sooner or later. There are still many things for me to do, so I want to live. And to live, I have to get stronger," said Long Qin solemnly, as well as with some chilling killing intent. It wasn't that he was vicious, but that this world was simply forcing him to be like this. If he wasn't vicious enough, he wouldn't be able to live. Today, he was bluntly expressing his attitude to Evil Moon. He hoped they could cooperate fully. He truly did need a powerful helper. He was alone, while his enemies were too powerful. Evil Moon was silent for a long time before it said, "Fine, I'll trust you once. I will help you with my full abilities. But you must return my freedom to me when the time comes. If you dare to trick me, I'll sacrifice my soul to unleash the ancient evil dragon curse on you." Long Qin smiled slightly. "Don't worry, I'm not such a person. We aren't suited to tricking others, right? Fine, then we can cooperate fully. I trust someone that Yun Shang favors won't be too useless," said Evil Moon. Long Qin was much more at ease now. Evil Moon might belong to the evil dragon race, and while it possessed its sinister and bloodthirsty nature, Long Qin also felt it to possess the pride of the dragon race. Once it decided on something, it wouldn't change its mind so easily. It wasn't likely to betray him in that manner. "Evil Moon, according to your predictions, how long will it take for the heaven-flipping seal to control its power and become our trump card?" asked Long Qin. "It's like a child right now. It'll take a long time for it to learn how to control its power. Furthermore, although its item spirit is complete, it hasn't activated many of its runes. What it used was only the remnant divine runes from before its original item spirit died. After that one ridiculous attack as well as helping me break out of the Brahma divine diagram seal, it doesn't even have a tenth of its divine energy. It's not able to help temporarily," said Evil Moon. "What?" Long Qin was stunned. He had originally been hoping for the heaven-flipping seal to become his trump card during this time. So this was quite the blow. Unfortunately, it was also very normal. The heaven-flipping seal was a very powerful half-step divine item and was even stronger than the violet gold soul-devouring staff. But it would need to slowly activate its divine runes and gain control of them before being able to unleash its true potential. "Fine, then I'll leave it to you. Don't be too vicious," said Long Qin with a warning. He didn't want the heaven-flipping seal to be scarred by Evil Moon's teaching. As expected, the heaven-flipping seal's item spirit was a bit afraid of Evil Moon. Long Qin had to comfort it before he sent it an Evil Moon into his spiritual space. Having formed a true promise of cooperation between himself and Evil Moon, Long Qin wasn't so defensive toward it. He allowed it into his spiritual space. He could oversee everything there and make sure Evil Moon didn't treat the heaven-flipping seal too badly. Evil Moon controlled its temper as best as it could as it tried to teach the heaven-flipping seal how to control its divine energy. The heaven-flipping seal nervously received its lessons. After arranging this, Long Chen sank into thought. Suddenly his expression changed. Would Heavenly Fate Island target his parents who were hidden in the eastern wasteland? When he thought of this, he immediately became uneasy. Taking out a flying boat, he determined his orientation and rushed off toward the east. He got away? Within a large palace, the Vice Palace Master of the Flame Divine Palace had his head lowered. He was silent, not daring to speak. There were over 10 other elders present, and they were all shocked. At the highest position of the palace was a throne. A middle-aged man was sitting on top of it, his eyes closed in thought. This middle-aged man was Pill Valley's master, Yu Xiaoyan. At this point, his eyes were closed after hearing the Vice Palace Master's report. It was unknown what he was thinking. Beside Yu Xiaoyan stood a beautiful woman. She was Pill Valley's top beauty, as well as their top genius, the Pill Fairy, Yu Qingxian. At this time, Yu Qingxian had a complicated expression. She didn't know why her father had invited her here, but after listening to the Vice Palace Master's report, she couldn't help feeling a bit helpless. However, she didn't say anything. What is your Flame Divine Palace worth if you couldn't even catch Long Chen with that many people, that many divine items, and even the Brahma Divine Diagram? You've lost the face of Pill Valley, said a Grand Elder frostily. The Flame Divine Palace is getting worse and worse. The 18 Divine Guards weren't able to capture Long San. 18 late life star experts, and you still didn't manage to capture him. Now even the Vice Palace Master was unable to capture Long Chen even with that many divine items. If it were me, I wouldn't even have the face to return, added another elder. If Long Chen was present, he'd definitely be very surprised. These two elders were actually from the radical faction and the conservative faction respectively. They were in tune now against the Flame Divine Palace. All of you, stop placing blame. It isn't the Vice Palace Master's fault. I saw everything that happened through the Brahma Divine Diagram. That Long Chen's extremely strange. Not only does he possess that evil weapon, but he also took out another powerful divine item at a critical moment. If my memory is correct, that divine item might be the heaven-flipping divine brick whose name shook the land during the Dark Era. It is also called the heaven-flipping seal. Yu Xiaoyan waved his hand, suppressing their mocking and grumbling. The heaven-flipping seal? Didn't it meet its end in the Dark Era along with the heaven-flipping venerate? Another elder let out a startled cry. The heaven-flipping seal's name was familiar to him as well. The heaven-flipping venerate died, but there are no records of what happened to the heaven-flipping seal. People simply assumed it was destroyed, but there was no proof to back it up. Looking at the history of the continent, the only one to use a cyan brick as a weapon was the heaven-flipping venerate. Most likely, the only cyan brick that could possess that much power is the heaven-flipping seal, said Yu Xiaoyan. Everyone was shocked. The heaven-flipping seal was a very well-known existence amongst divine items. Its power was extremely great. How could Long Chen have obtained another terrifying treasure? This Long Chen's luck is heaven-defying. He has countless secrets, and he even obtained the second volume of the Nirvana scripture. We have to capture him alive and can't let him fall into other people's hands, said a Grand Elder. Long Chen had so many secrets that it made them uneasy. Just Evil Moon and the heaven-flipping seal were enough to entice countless people, and Pill Valley was no exception. Are we capturing Long Chen because he slaughtered the people on his own side or because he possesses priceless treasures? The silent Pill Fairy finally spoke, but as soon as she did, everyone else was embarrassed. Cough, of course it's because Long Chen is an evil sinner. We are doing this to remove a disaster for the common people and protect the peace of the continent. If such a terrifying weapon was left in the hands of Long Chen, it would be a disaster for the continent. We are both punishing an evildoer and protecting the innocent. That is our duty, said an elder with great righteousness. The Pill Fairy smiled. That smile was indescribably odd. It was so strange that everyone present felt a slight burning sensation in their faces. All right, I've been informed. Elder Tong Li, go take a trip to Heavenly Fate Island again. I'll leave this matter to you, said Yu Xiaoyun. The Elder Tong Li was the one who had righteously answered the Pill Fairy's question. The others can go and handle your own business. Yu Xiaoyun waved his hand, and everyone retreated, leaving behind only himself and the Pill Fairy, father and daughter. The Pill Fairy stared at the empty space within the Grand Palace. Her eyes stared absently, and it was unknown what she was thinking. Yu Xiaoyun also seemed to be lost in thought. The drop of a single pin could be heard in the palace. Do you want to tell me what you think? Finally, it was Yu Xiaoyun who broke the silence. The Pill Fairy shook her head. What I think isn't important. I can't change your decision. I feel like a fool. Oh, what are you talking about? Asked Yu Xiaoyun. If Long Chen was present, he would definitely find it strange. The Pill Fairy had always been full of reverence for her father. As for Yu Xiaoyun, he felt sorry for his daughter for not being there for her. The two of them loved each other, yet their tone now was very strange. I always thought that Pill Valley was this world's sacred and holy land. I didn't expect it to be a place filled with hidden rot and corruption. Every person here is a hypocrite. Before, everything I saw was just what others wanted me to see. But one day I saw him. He was like a mirror, showing me how twisted Pill Valley was. The Pill Fairy's voice shuddered lightly as she was unable to fully control her emotions. She continued, I almost can't believe that what I'm seeing is true. Now you tell me that the conservative and the radical faction were nothing more than a pretense, while everything was under your control. Everything the radical faction did was tacitly accepted by you. I really can't understand why you would do this. Are you really trying to gain control of this entire world? Yu Xiaoyun slowly stood and walked until he was facing the Pill Fairy. He felt somewhat guilty as he said, Qing Xian, I didn't trick you on purpose. This is simply reality. Now that you're older, you need to face reality. Pill Valley doesn't belong to us, but to God Brahma and God Day-Night. Everything I do is following their divine orders. Divine orders? Correct. So don't blame your father. You've grown up, and your Empyrean manifestation is already showing signs of awakening. You are the divine emissary decided by the gods, so I have no way to let you continue living a carefree life. I can only let you see reality. Perhaps it's a bit cruel, but you would have to face it sooner or later. Hence, showing you these things is just a kind of preparation, sighed Yu Xiaoyun. Dad, what is going on? I don't understand. The Pill Fairy was still confused. All you need to know is that you are your father's daughter. I definitely won't harm you, and if anyone tries to do so, I will put my life on the line to protect you. However, you need to learn about this world's rules. They are very cruel, but they must be followed. No one can resist them. Yu Xiaoyun gently touched his daughter's cheek helplessly. Go back into seclusion. Once you fully awaken your Empyrean manifestation, you will receive the divine orders as well. You'll understand everything at that time. Yu Xiaoyun waved his hand, and runes enveloped the Pill Fairy. In spite of her expression which said that she wished to keep talking, he forcibly sent her away. The Pill Fairy vanished, leaving behind only Yu Xiaoyun. In the large palace, he appeared very lonely. Yu Xiaoyun looked around and sighed, muttering to himself, the divine orders say that a new era is about to descend. This is the best era but also the worst era. Whether it will be a blessing or a disaster, no one knows. A single flying boat rapidly sped across the martial heaven searing. It was going in a straight line and was causing large waves to surge. Long Chen couldn't be bothered with the dangers of the sea. He pushed the flying boat's speed to its peak. He didn't care if he drew the attention of the sea demons. He had to return to the eastern wasteland as quickly as possible. Long Chen knew his own weakness, and others knew it as well. The Shen Tiandao sect had vanished. Of the other powers that were related to him, the Huayun sect was an existence no one dared to touch, and the Wine God Palace was such an existence as well. As for the Heaven-Splitting Battle sect, they were a bunch of fighting madmen. No one wanted to provoke them, because that was provoking death. Now, the only ones that they could use to threaten him were his father and mother in the eastern wasteland. This was his weakest point right now. If his parents were captured, his enemies would have truly caught him. His father, his mother, and his sister were holed up in a secluded mountain. Only he knew their position. It was a secret no one else knew. Now, Heavenly Fate Island had been thrown into the mix. With their abilities, it would be easy for them to calculate the position of his parents. So he had to rush back as quickly as possible. Hopefully, he'd make it in time and they would still be safe. Despite being a warrior of 100 battles, Long Chen was still very worried. He was unable to understand how they had managed to calculate where he would be for this trap. According to reason, a divine item like Evil Moon was more than capable of screening itself from the heavens. Back then, Li Tianxian had done the same thing with the reincarnation mirror, blocking others from being able to read the lines of fate of the Shantian Dao sect. That had resulted in Xian Jizi miscalculating and resulted in the corrupt path being dealt a vicious blow on Devil Spirit Mountain. For existences on the level of Evil Moon, others wouldn't possibly be able to calculate anything about it or him. But somehow they had, and Long Chen had almost lost his life. That made him feel a sense of danger. What he didn't know was that when Heavenly Fate Island received a request from Pill Valley's master to calculate his position, that Grandmaster had ended up exploding as soon as he tried. There had been no warning at all. That had frightened all their people, as they had never encountered such a thing. That Grandmaster had been a life-star expert skilled in reading the heavens, but he had met with a terrifying backlash and was killed without the slightest ability to resist. At that time, Heavenly Fate Island had declared that they wouldn't calculate anything about him no matter what. He was such a fearful figure that just calculating anything about him resulted in a karmic backlash. No matter what Pill Valley said, they refused. At that time, someone had come up with a plan to not calculate Long Chen's position, but to calculate which sects or powers that were about to be destroyed within the eastern Xian region. Pill Valley had given them a list of sects that had attacked Long Chen within the eastern Xian city. By calculating the fate of those sects, it was possible to determine which one would be Long Chen's next stop. In the end, they had really ended up calculating that the next one to be destroyed would be the Sha family. But the calculations were muddled, and it was impossible to confirm anything for sure. Then after calculating the lines of fate of the other sects, they found that those sects wouldn't be destroyed in a short time, so they confirmed that Long Chen's next target would be the Sha family. That was why Pill Valley had gathered its forces and laid a secret trap at the Sha family, lying in wait for Long Chen. Being unaware of this, Long Chen thought that Heavenly Fate Island had some special ability to peer through the shielding of divine items, which allowed them to calculate his next move. That made him very uneasy. What he was most afraid of was Pill Valley's next move. If they really did target his parents, then it would be over for him. He pushed his flying boat as fast as he could, and it sped through the water. It was unknown if it was because it was too quick or because it came from Pill Valley, but no sea demons came out to stop him. Wait, this place is... Long Chen suddenly sensed something and hastily took out a map. This is near where the Azure Dragon reverse scale is. Long Chen immediately changed directions to the left. He put away the flying boat and charged into the water, swimming down. Last time, due to his cultivation base, he was very slow to descend. This time, it only took an incense stick's worth of time to reach the depths of the sea. The initial water pressure that had been suffocating was now nothing. This is an Azure Dragon reverse scale. A startled cry came from Evil Moon in his spiritual space. The dragon scale still had a barrier around it. Back then, he had been helpless to enter because this barrier was formed of dragon might. Other than great defensive power, it possessed the pressure of the draconic bloodline. When he approached it, he clearly felt his blood flowing faster. When he tried to charge through the barrier, it felt like he had entered thicker water. But it didn't take him much effort to enter. However, he felt his blood flow even faster, and his hair stood on end. His blood vessels began to bulge alarmingly. "Don't tell me you're trying to subdue that Azure Dragon reverse scale," said Evil Moon with shock. "Yes, I want to try it." Long Chen nodded. "Then you should wait a moment. First, bring me and the heaven-flipping seal out. Otherwise, no one will be here to gather your corpse," said Evil Moon. What is that supposed to mean? Asked Long Chen. What I mean is, if you try to subdue it, you'll die without a doubt. No way. What do you mean, no way? That's an Azure Dragon reverse scale. It's completely different from the Green Dragon reverse scale. Green dragons are what you call a baby dragon, while Azure dragons are grown-ups. The difference in power between them is more than 10,000 times. Furthermore, when the Azure Dragon reverse scale sheds, it's the molting of when the dragon rises to a higher realm. It contains the will of that molting. The Green Dragon scale only needed you to form a resonance with it to subdue it, as it fell naturally as part of the growth process. But the Azure Dragon reverse scale contains the berserk will of its molting, and you must suppress that with brute strength. Let me put it to you this way. When the Azure Dragon molts, it goes through dragon tribulation, and it is far beyond your imagination. This reverse scale fell from the Azure Dragon only after it went through its dragon tribulation, so it contains the will of the Azure Dragon fighting against the heavenly Daos. Anyone or anything that tries to subdue it will face intense resistance. Even its original owner would be no exception. Whoever this scale is from, they were definitely an extremely pure-blooded dragon. Even without my body of flesh and blood, I can sense the dragon might coming from it. If you don't want to die, don't try this. After all, we just established a solid cooperation relationship. I don't really want you to die, said Evil Moon sincerely. It didn't want him to die? That was a strange way of saying something like that. Long Chen didn't bother quibbling over that though. I can sense a reaction from my own blood. I feel like this scale is very likely from the same dragon as the original Green Dragon reverse scale I obtained, said Long Chen. So what? I'm telling you, after going through the dragon tribulation, this scale is a separate entity. Let alone you, even its original master would have to use brute power to subdue it. Even if you advanced to the Life Star realm, you wouldn't necessarily be able to subdue it. I'm from the dragon race, so don't you think I know more about this topic than you? Why are you arguing against me over this? Are you afraid I'm trying to harm you? Demanded Evil Moon. It was a bit angry now that Long Chen didn't trust what it was saying. As a prideful being, that was unacceptable. Fine, I'll listen to you. I just want to touch it. Long Chen reached out and touched the Azure Dragon scale. When he touched it, he silently circulated the energy in his blood, trying to form a bloodline resonance with it. With Evelmoon's warning, he gave up any thoughts of immediately subduing it. Right now, all he wanted was to use his bloodline energy to form a closer connection to the scale and pull it into the primal chaos space. When his hand touched it, the jade-like dragon scale began to shine. That light enveloped Long Chen's hand. In that instant, he felt his dragon blood flowing even faster. But he didn't sense any danger. There is a way. Long Chen was delighted. He slowly circulated the primal chaos bead, preparing to move it into the primal chaos space. In that instant, the soft light of the dragon scale vanished. The scale instantly became like a wild beast, and a fierce aura erupted. Long Chen's arms exploded in mangled bits, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. He felt like his body was about to shatter. Horrified, he hastily tried to retreat. However, he suddenly found that the dragon scale was pulling him back in. He couldn't retreat. At the same time, lines began to surge on top of the scale. He could vaguely see the image of a huge white dragon roaring through a sea of lightning, its huge claw striking the dome of the heavens. A sensation of death enveloped Long Chen. No matter how he resisted, he couldn't get away. A black saber image slashed into the dragon scale. The saber image instantly exploded, but thanks to it, the suction force decreased, and Long Chen managed to pull out of the region of the Azure Dragon reverse scale. Long Chen's heart was pounding and he was pale. His upper body was a mangled mess, and his bones were covered in tiny cracks, looking like they might shatter at any moment. You deserve it. Now you'll listen when I speak. Evelmoon's voice rang out, containing a hint of mockery. It was quite satisfied to see Long Chen suffer after not listening to it. Fine, I should have listened to you. I deserve it. Long Chen nodded. Taking one glance back at the quiet dragon scale floating at the bottom of the sea, he swam back up. He activated the flying boat and began rushing back to the eastern wasteland. He healed using the primal chaos bead. Evil Moon, how many realms does a true dragon have? How is the second realm already so powerful? The image of the huge white dragon tearing through the heavens with its claw had been truly shocking. I don't want to talk about the true dragons. All you need to know is that even with your power and control over lightning, trying to subdue it before reaching the Life Star realm would be purely courting death, said Evil Moon. Every time Long Chen asked anything about the true dragon race or why the evil dragon race had betrayed the dragon race, Evil Moon would shut its mouth and refuse to say a word. The Life Star realm? That's too far. Long Chen sighed. With his current cultivation speed, he didn't know how many years it would take to reach the Life Star realm. After reaching the 10th heaven stage of the Jade Core realm, his cultivation base had essentially stopped advancing. He had run out of the useful medicinal pills from Pill Valley, and now, no matter how many pills he consumed, his cultivation base didn't increase. That wasn't because he had been slacking, but because the amount of energy required to advance to the next level was ridiculous. As he sped through the sea, no sea demon stopped him. He quickly arrived at the storm region. Seeing that, Long Chen felt a wave of emotion. He had finally returned to the eastern wasteland. He didn't slow down. Using the flying boat's powerful defenses, he tore straight through the storm zone. After going through, he quickly saw a stretch of land. That familiar scene made him feel homesick. Slightly correcting his direction, his flying boat sped off. In just an hour, he put it away and took out his lightning wings. After half an incense stick's worth of time, he arrived at a small village. Seeing this village, Long Chen's heart pounded. His divine sense swept through it, but he didn't find any aura of his parents or sister. Have they already been captured? Long Chen's expression changed. Long Chen hastily spread his divine sense, and his hard gaze quickly softened. He managed to find them. They were living in a simple thatched hut on a hillside a few dozen miles from the village. The small courtyard outside of the hut was filled with sprouting vegetables. Not far from it, one could also see a stretch of orchard that was blocked by a wooden fence. It was a quiet and content place, isolated from the clamor of the world. There was a woman in the orchard, picking a newly ripened fruit. Rubbing it clean with a towel, she handed it to a girl beside her. This girl looked to be around 8 or 9 years old. Her hair was tied in 2 small pigtails, and she had a pair of pure and innocent eyes. "Mom, you spent all day weeding. You should eat the first one," said the girl cutely. "Xiaoyu, I'm not tired. This is the first ripened fruit of the orchard. You have to taste it to see if it's good or not." The woman smiled lovingly. "No, you have to eat it first. Otherwise, I won't eat it either," the girl insisted. The woman smiled. "You really are just like your brother. So stubborn." The woman helplessly took a small bite of the fruit before handing it to the girl. Only then did the girl happily receive the fruit and take a big bite of it. The fruit's juice dripped down her face, but she was very happy with the taste. "Eat slower. A young lady must be refined. You can't eat so inelegantly. You really are just like your brother." The woman lightly rebuked the girl. Taking out a handkerchief, she wiped the juices off the girl's face. The girl seemed to be used to it and continued happily eating the fruit. "Mom, you said my brother went out to study and he'll return when his studies are finished. How come he still isn't back? The fruit's already ripe, and if he doesn't come back, he won't make it." Suddenly, the girl sensed that she had said the wrong thing as her mother's eyes turned red. "Mom, I'm sorry." The woman slowly knelt and looked the girl in the eye. "Your big brother Long Chen is working hard at his studies. He's just like you, a smart and thoughtful child. If he hasn't returned, it just means he's still working hard. Once he succeeds, he'll definitely come back to see us. Mom, your unfilial son has returned." At this moment, an equally emotional voice rang out not far from her. The woman's whole body shook as she slowly turned around. She saw that at some unknown time, a tall, handsome young man had appeared behind her. The immaturity that had been present on this face the last time she had seen it had been removed by the passing of time. It was still the same face, but after going through hardships, it looked different. The things that hadn't changed were those emotional eyes. Long Chen's mother felt like she was dreaming. "Mom, Your child has been unfilial. Tears flowed out of Long Chen's eyes. He was filled with guilt as he was truly an unfilial son. He had 1,000 things he wanted to say, but he wasn't able to say any of them. Chen, it really is you. Mrs. Long was also crying as she held Long Chen. She held him tightly as if she were afraid he would fly away. No matter how high his cultivation base rose, no matter how his name shook the land, he would always be a child in front of his mother. Within his mother's embrace, all his emotions spilled out like a dam that had been opened. In front of his brothers and beauties, he was the most dependable companion. In front of his enemies, he was fierce and vicious, striking fear into their hearts with just his name. Only in front of his mother was he neither an unrivaled hero nor a fierce fiend. He was just a completely ordinary child. Ever since he had stepped onto the path of cultivation, he had never lowered his head in the face of the countless obstacles and setbacks. Even in front of the slander of the entire world, he could wave it off with a smile. With his mother, it was like he had returned to his childhood, and all his grievances spilled out. Only in his mother's embrace could he feel warmth and comfort. Good child, don't cry. As long as you're back, everything's fine. Xiaoyu, why are you hiding? Haven't you been missing your brother every day? Now your brother's back. Do you not recognize him? After a while of crying, Mrs. Long helped Long Chen wipe away his tears as well as her own. Only then did she see Long Xiaoyu hiding behind her, stealthily staring at Long Chen. When Long Chen looked at her, she hid herself completely, seemingly afraid of him. This child, sighed Mrs. Long. Xiaoyu, do you not remember me? I brought you a gift. Enticed Long Chen. I remember you, but you look different. You're too frightening and you don't look quite the same. Xiaoyu stuck out her head to glance at Long Chen before retracting it once more. Long Chen bitterly smiled. After all these years, his appearance hadn't changed that much. However, although his aura was suppressed right now, he had slaughtered too many people. Perhaps his mother was unable to sense it, but a child's pure nature was very sensitive to such a thing. For her to feel afraid of him was instinctual. Long Chen took out a small ball. Rainbow light roved around it, and flowers of light blossomed on it repeatedly. He smiled. This is a gift I prepared specially for you. Do you like it? Yes, it had been prepared specially. But the amount of time he had spent preparing was rather short. Actually, it was just a few breaths' time. As soon as Long Chen had seen Xiaoyu, he had had the blazing dragon cauldron work with Hua Long to refine this special medicinal pill. It was a 9th-tier medicinal pill, but in reality, it had no medicinal effect. It was not used for consuming, but for testing an alchemist's control over their pill flame and spiritual strength. The greater their control over their pill flame and spiritual strength when refining this pill, the more beautiful the end result would be. This pill was purely used to test an alchemist's talent. However, the quality was so high that some extra lines had appeared on it, making it appear even more glorious and attractive. It was as enticing as a shining pearl, but that pearl now seemed to possess its own life. Let alone a child, even an adult would be drawn over by it. When Xiaoyu saw this fun object, it was unknown whether her aversion toward him had vanished or not, but she accepted it. Your father's fishing beside the river. You should go see him. Mrs. Long Chen was extremely happy to see Long Chen return, and she wanted her husband to be happy too. Father really is in an interesting mood. He can calm down enough to fish? Long Chen was surprised by this, as well as a bit sad. Back in the day, Long Tianshao had been the Phoenix Cry Empire's famous and powerful border suppression marquis. He had used his great power and leadership abilities to protect the borders from the invading barbarians. He had been a brilliant warrior, but now he was forced to live in seclusion within the wild mountains. That made Long Chen feel guilty. This was all because of him. He's actually gotten in a better mood after coming here. Back in the Phoenix Cry Empire, we often bickered, but your father actually seems much calmer now. He lets me have my way most of the time. Perhaps a person's environment can really change them. We're now in the Green Mountains, living a carefree life away from the struggle of the world. We don't have to worry every day like when we were in the Phoenix Cry Empire, and your father is no longer busy with work all day. He likes living this comfortable life. Although he wasn't a bit used to it at the start, we both feel very satisfied with our current lives. Mrs. Long smiled at Long Chen. After undergoing huge upheavals, a person's frame of mind would change. Mrs. Long was like that. This was precisely the kind of life that she wanted. Her husband and daughter were beside her from sunrise to sunset, and each day passed peacefully. These days were ordinary, but they were happy. Hearing this, Long Chen's guilt was alleviated slightly. He asked them why they had moved from the village to this place. Those villagers are actually very nice. At first, they warmly welcomed us, and your father helped them with hunting. But later, the flavor changed. Although your father didn't expose his status as a cultivator, the villagers sensed that he was particularly powerful. Each day, he would bring back as much as a month's worth of hunting spoils from several other people. Plus, there was no danger to anyone's lives. It was very easy, Mrs. Long sighed. A slight sneer appeared on Long Chen's face. And then they grew dependent on him, saying that since he was so powerful, why didn't he go hunting some more and split what he couldn't finish with them? Mrs. Long nodded. As soon as Long Chen had heard the start, he had known the conclusion. Long Chen shook his head. This is moral extortion. They feel that stronger people should put in more effort and that wealthy people should donate their wealth more. They don't realize that this kind of thinking turns them into parasites without the slightest feeling of urgency or danger to better themselves. If they lose their parasitic target, they simply end up dying. Other people can help you for a while, but they can't help you for a lifetime. Father was right to leave the village. If they relied on him too much, it would result in apathy from them. But I trust when he left, he had to have been cursed quite a bit. If you help someone once, you're a good person, but if you help them 1,000 times and then don't help them once, you're an irredeemable devil. Viewing other people's help as simply proper without being grateful is a common problem in this world. Chen, you have really grown up. Mrs. Long sighed emotionally upon hearing Long Chen speak with such frank assurance. Long Chen was no longer that willful child. He had matured, but perhaps too much. Mom, can you make some food? I'll go find Dad. Let's have a proper meal together. You should know that I dream about your cooking. Long Chen smiled. All right, then I'll make your favorite pork with spring bamboo. Mrs. Long smiled and returned to the grass hut. Long Xiaoyu was playing with the medicinal pill delightedly. She was a bit enraptured and didn't even pay attention to Long Chen. Helplessly, Long Chen walked to the riverside on his own. The river was only a few dozen meters wide, and the water was very clear and slow-running. It reflected the surrounding mountains. A person was sitting on a rock beside the river. He had a fishing rod in his hand and he was staring at the ripples coming from the float on the river. A fish was currently teasing the hook. Most fish would test the bait a couple of times before eating it to confirm it was edible. Suddenly, the float sank and the fishing rod bent. The fish had taken the bait. Haha, my luck's pretty good today. I got a big fish. He laughed heartily. His voice was still heroic and unrestrained. He was the old border-suppressing Marquis of the Phoenix Cry Empire, Long Tianxiao. A 2-foot-long fish flew out of the water. Long Tianxiao pulled fiercely. The fish was strong, but it was pulled over by Long Tianxiao in just a short moment. He caught it in a net. This fish had to be over 10 pounds. Such a catch was quite rare, delighting Long Tianxiao. Now Xiaoyu will have a good snack. Long Tianxiao smiled. I'll also have a good snack. A voice rang out behind Long Tianxiao. Long Tianxiao jumped, almost dropping the fish. He saw a black-robed man smiling at him. Chen, you're back? Long Tianxiao dropped the fish and grabbed Long Chen's arms, shaking him fiercely, his eyes reddening. Little brat, you're getting quite strong. With Long Tianxiao's power, how could he possibly shake Long Chen? Although Long Chen had given Long Tianxiao some medicinal pills to change his constitution, his innate talent was limited. Even now, he hadn't broken through to the Xiantian realm. If I wasn't strong, I would be suppressed by others. How else am I supposed to block the wind and rain? Long Chen smiled. Back when Long Chen was a child, Long Tianxiao would always give his share of meat to Long Chen, often saying that men needed to grow up strong to shield others from the wind and rain. Now, Long Chen was no longer that small child. He had become a true expert. "Have you seen your mother and sister yet?" asked Long Tianxiao. "I saw them first," said Long Chen. "Good. Let's go home. You really came back at the right time. This small river has a kind of fish called the golden mouth catfish. Ordinary catfish live in dirty water and eat rotten meat. Its meat is like mud and has a bad mouth feel. There's also a strange taste to it. But these golden mouth catfish eat the fruit that drops to the top of the river. Their meat is delicious and feels good as it flows down your throat. Today, my luck is good, and I actually caught such a big one. It seems the heavens knew you would be back and specially prepared it for me, ha," laughed Long Tianxiao. Long Chen smiled self-mockingly. If the heavens had known he was coming back, it probably would have been impossible to fish up anything at all. He helped his father carry the net. Other than the golden mouth catfish, there were a dozen other random fish. There was definitely enough to eat. "If the golden mouth catfish tastes so good, why don't I catch a few extra?" asked Long Chen. With his current power, catching fish didn't take any effort. If he wanted to, he could pick this entire river clear. No. Then it wouldn't have any meaning. Fishing is a kind of pleasure, not a means of survival. These two things must be differentiated. Long Tianxiao walked alongside Long Chen as he slowly said, "Although your cultivation base is higher and you're stronger, your mental realm hasn't progressed. That isn't a good thing." "Dad, are you transmitting your teachings to me?" Long Chen smiled. "What, because your cultivation base is higher, you're looking down on me?" demanded Long Tianxiao humorously. "How could I dare? In front of you, I will never strike or curse back when you beat and curse me," laughed Long Chen. "Little brat, wasn't that because you were too naughty? If we weren't strict enough and instead indulged you, you'd have long since ascended," scolded Long Tianxiao. Long Chen laughed and didn't argue. To be scolded by his father was a kind of blessing as well. They quickly arrived at the grass hut, and they saw Long Xiaoyu playing with the medicinal pill, throwing it high into the air. When it was thrown, the medicinal energy would ripple and unleash light similar to fireworks. She was so focused on it that she didn't even notice Long Tianxiao and Long Chen, making them speechless. There was a stone table outside the grass hut with 4 stone seats around it. Seeing that 4th seat, he knew it had been prepared for him this entire time, but it had gone empty. Even while he wasn't present, his family was always thinking of him. As for him, it had been so many years, but he hadn't even returned once. Mrs. Long ran out when Long Tianxiao returned, taking the golden mouth catfish. Seeing such a big one, she smiled. She told them to have some tea while she prepared the fish. Long Tianxiao took out a teapot and placed it on the stone table, steeping the tea. Long Chen hastily said, "I have some good tea leaves here." Tea isn't differentiated by good or bad. What matters is the state of mind of the drinker. When it comes to fish, what matters isn't size, but what you want. Long Tianxiao shook his head and used his own tea leaves. "Chener, you're too tired. I can see the weariness in your eyes. You need to adjust yourselves, or if you continue like this, with your nerves tight constantly, you won't be able to release your burden. Your mind will close off, and when you encounter troublesome situations, you won't be able to make the correct decision. Although I don't know what you've experienced, I can feel that you're under too much pressure. If you stay in that state for too long, it'll cause problems." Long Tianxiao looked at Long Chen with some distress. Long Chen's worn-down face couldn't conceal his weariness. However, he had also become an adult now and had his own world. Long Tianxiao could not block the wind and rain for him. "Some stuff has really been causing me some trouble lately, and it feels a bit hard to breathe because of it," said Long Chen. As soon as he had returned to the martial heaven continent, he had seen the Xiantian Dao sect's destruction and become surrounded by powerful enemies that wanted to kill him. Practically, the entire eastern Xian region was after him. Pill Valley, the ancient races, the ancient family alliance, and the Bloodkill Hall were all watching him. As for the corrupt path, they had been silent this whole time. But he knew they were plotting something. That was the most frightening thing. The open dangers could be defended against, but the enemies at your back would lie in wait until they could launch one fatal blow. This kind of pressure was something that would probably drive someone else mad. "You're tired," said Long Tianxiao. "Yes, a bit." Long Chen nodded. "If you're tired, then stop for a moment." "But I can't stop." Long Chen bitterly smiled. "Why can't you stop? Do you still remember the first time you learned to swim?" Long Tianxiao passed Long Chen a cup of tea. Long Chen received it. He scrunched his eyebrows. "How could I not remember? Back then, you really were vicious and directly tossed me into the pool. I choked and floated on the water. I still remember you had a fierce fight with Mother because of it." Long Tianxiao nodded. "That's right. Your mother loved you too much to do that. But some things can't be taken step by step. That's why it just took you a few hours to learn how to swim. Although you were just 2 years old, I trust you remember everything at that time." "Of course I remember. I remember your dark face very clearly. It was just as frightening as Yama King's face," grumbled Long Chen. Long Tianxiao had truly been frightening at that time. If Long Chen had a son, he wouldn't be able to treat him like that. Long Tianxiao shook his head. "It seems you don't remember enough. Do you still remember when I told you this? Life is like drowning. The more you panic, the more afraid you are. The more you struggle, the closer you are to death." Long Chen was startled. Now that Long Tianxiao brought it up, Long Chen truly did recall that he had said this. "Your current situation is like drowning in a sea. You are struggling to maintain a moment's safety, but you are unable to escape the crisis. You can't see hope. That's why you're tired, because you can't see the shore or any islands. In this kind of situation, the more you struggle, the more energy you're wasting. Do you still remember how you managed to learn how to swim in just a few hours?" Long Chen sank into thought. "You told me that in a crisis, when no one else can help you, you have to learn a way to breathe for yourself. Once you get a chance to breathe, you adjust your current state to face the danger, instead of blindly fighting against the crisis. What you're saying is, yes. Just like back then, you have to think of a way to breathe. Your nerves are tight all the time now. That won't help you, and it'll hold you back instead. You don't have a way to relax? That's just an excuse. You have to relax, and that's the only way you can face the next challenge better. When drowning, you have to find a way to breathe before learning how to swim. Only once you know how to breathe can you begin the race against time. With it, you'll be able to last longer on the waves. You can last until someone saves you or until you reach the shore. Sometimes, the principles behind a single breath of air can be the foundation of the entire world cycle. The Tao is always right beside us, but most people turn a blind eye to it. So, Chinner, don't be in such a rush to run. Sometimes, you have to stop and look at the scenery around you. You might even have to look back at your path. Then you might come to an enlightenment. Don't blindly follow the flow of the waves. Having a target doesn't mean you won't get lost. You have to comprehend your own Tao. Don't follow the same path that someone else walked, because if you do, you won't surpass them. Long Chen was deeply shocked. He hadn't thought that his father, who hadn't even reached the Xiantian realm, would have such a deep understanding of the heavenly Taos. His last sentence struck a special chord in Long Chen. He couldn't walk the same path as his predecessors, or he would never be able to surpass them. He had always relied on the pill sovereign memories, the 9-star hegemon body art, the dragon blood body tempering art, the nirvana scripture, and his other peerless techniques. He felt that these techniques were incomparably powerful, and that as long as he could comprehend them, he would be unrivaled. It was because he relied on them so much that he had never created his own move. Now his father's words woke him up to this point. The paths of other people, no matter how far they managed to walk, would always come to an end eventually. What would Long Chen do once he reached the end? Was he supposed to just stop there? If he walked someone else's path, wouldn't their end also be his end? This was a problem he had never thought about. He had been too dependent on what he possessed. What if one day he couldn't progress in the 9-star hegemon body art any longer? Or what if the 6th star never revealed itself? "Thank you for your teaching. Dad, you really are the wisest," said Long Chen respectfully. "Wisdom doesn't mean anything. The difference between us is our viewpoints. You are looking from within, while I am looking from outside. I've escaped the clamor of the secular world. Each day, I go fishing or hunting, and I see Xiaoyu growing. These days have been the happiest days for me and your mother. By leaving the struggles of the world, by distancing yourself from the devils of your heart, you will be able to understand many things that you couldn't before, said Long Tianxiao. You're too modest. I've seen many people in the Central Plains, but only a few of them can match your intelligence, said Long Chen. That was truly the case. Although there were many experts with powerful cultivation bases and great power, in Long Chen's eyes, they were just a pack of strong fools. In terms of intelligence, the only ones he had ever admired were Sovereign Yunshang, the high priest, Li Tianxian, and now his father. Long Tianxiao shook his head. This so-called intelligence is just based on different viewpoints. One single kind of intelligence that can fully explain everything doesn't exist. If it did, then that could only be called the heavenly Daos. The lives of everything in the world, the myriad of Daos, the interchange between life and death, the cycle of karma, heaven and earth. All right, stop talking about philosophy. Chener's back, and he didn't come back to hear that. Hurry up and tidy the table. The food's done. Mrs. Long came walking out with 2 plates of piping hot food. Long Chen hastily stood to put away the tea set. But he was stopped by his mother. Chen, let your father do it. He only stops talking about philosophy when he's working. That's the only way our ears have peace. Long Chen's expression was odd. He looked at Long Tianxiao only to see him shrug and wink. Sometimes keeping your mouth shut is true wisdom. The table was quickly filled with delicacies. There were 4 hot and 4 cool dishes, and they were all Long Chen's favorites. A large fish dish at the center was emitting an enticing scent. Gulp, gulp. Long Chen was startled. The first gulping sound was his, but the second wasn't. He looked down to see Xiaoyu had run over. Her eyes were shining as she stared at the food. The two of you really are the same when it comes to this, laughed Mrs. Long. It's because we haven't had this much food in a long time, protested Xiaoyu. Long Chen was startled. He looked at Long Tianxiao. Was his family really too poor living here? Chen, you haven't experienced this kind of thing. Let me ask you, what is happiness? Asked Long Tianxiao. Happiness? I've never really thought about it. Long Chen scratched his head. Long Tianxiao smiled. In truth, happiness is just a state of mind, a state where your desires are satisfied. It's very simple. For example, when a hungry person eats, when a thirsty person drinks, when a cold person is warmed, when a tired person has a place to rest, they will all feel happiness. But happiness doesn't last forever. It only stays for a short time. Once you are used to that happiness, you won't be able to feel it any longer. So the majority of the people who feel very unhappy, in truth, have food to eat, water to drink, warm clothes to wear, and a roof over their heads. They feel unhappy because they've forgotten what made them unhappy before. So if you want to be happier longer, you have to know what sadness is. I don't want to hear philosophy. I just know that right now I'm hungry, and if I still don't eat, I'll starve to death, cried Xiaoyu finally after being forced to wait for Long Tianxiao to finish speaking. Tianxiao, stop prattling. Hurry and eat. In particular, the golden mouth catfish should be eaten while it's hot, said Mrs. Long. All right, let's eat, said Long Tianxiao. The Long family's rules were very strict. They taught Xiaoyu that until the seniors touched their chopsticks, the juniors couldn't either. Only then did Xiaoyu move her chopsticks. But what Long Chen didn't expect was for her to immediately dig out a big piece of fish meat and put it in his bowl. Big brother, thank you for the ball. I like it a lot. I don't have anything good to give you, so you can eat this fish first. Xiaoyu stared at Long Chen very solemnly. Ah, thank you. Long Chen smiled. He liked his sister very much, and he also helped her pick out some food with his chopsticks. Long Chen, have some wine? Ah, you should have some good wine yourself, right? Long Tianxiao was just about to open a jar of wine when he stopped himself. With your realm, wouldn't drinking anything be the same? Good wine is fine, bad wine is whatever. The important point is the drinker's heart. Wasn't that what you said? Laughed Long Chen. This was exactly what Long Tianxiao had said about drinking tea. It seemed Long Tianxiao still found it difficult to resist good wine. "Stop talking nonsense with me and bring out the wine," said a vexed Long Tianxiao. Long Chen laughed and took out 2 jugs of wine. They were from the wine god palace but weren't very powerful. They were made by a woman and instead of fiery heat, they contained a rich mellowness. If he brought out the wine made by the male disciples, Long Tianxiao might collapse after one taste. This wine in particular was called the 100-flower wine. It was not true wine in the strictest sense and was not intoxicating, making it suitable for Mrs. Long and Xiaoyu to drink with them. The sky gradually turned dark, and birdsong surrounded them. This place was peaceful and warm. The grass hut only had 2 beds. One was for Long Tianxiao, while the other was for Mrs. Long and Xiaoyu. Long Chen directly made his bed on the floor. Long Tianxiao tried to switch with him, but Long Chen refused no matter what. With his current body, even if he were to lie in ice water, he wouldn't get cold. This night, Long Chen slept particularly soundly. He didn't remember the last time he had felt such a sense of true peace. Furthermore, through Long Tianxiao's instructions, he had a feeling like his heart was growing clearer. He had to continue his path, but he had to maintain a hopeful heart. If he couldn't find hope, then he still needed to find opportunities to relax. Even if he could only relax for a single breath, it was better than nothing. He couldn't let his heart feel exhausted like that. Making sure a blade was sharpened to its best state was half the battle. Only by maintaining that relaxed state of mind could he focus his best and face the oncoming challenges. This would increase his odds of victory invisibly. He slept late into the day. Long Tianxiao went out as soon as the sun rose, saying he wanted to catch some different kinds of wild game and fruit for Long Chen to try. Mrs. Long accompanied Xiaoyu, playing outside, not letting her disturb Long Chen. No one knew a son better than his mother. Although she didn't know what he had experienced during these years, she could see his weariness. She couldn't give him anything except a good sleep. Long Chen woke refreshed. He walked out of the grass hut and felt the warm sunlight strike him. He stretched, feeling full of energy. "Big brother, play with me." Seeing Long Chen come out, Xiaoyu immediately ran over to him. After a day, she was much friendlier with Long Chen. "Let's go play on a boat." Long Chen didn't have any good things on him for children to play with. "What's so fun about a boat? Are we catching fish?" asked Xiaoyu. Long Chen waved his hand, summoning the flying boat. When the huge flying boat appeared in the sky, Mrs. Long jumped in shock. Xiaoyu also jumped, but then she cried out in excitement, immediately crying out to go on top of the flying boat. Long Chen had the flying boat descend onto the hillside. He opened the door and lowered the staircase, bringing his mother and sister up onto the flying boat. The 2 of them had never seen a flying boat before, and only once they got on did they realize the interior was dozens of times greater than how it appeared on the outside. Xiaoyu was incomparably excited and refused to get off. When it was noon, Long Tianxiao returned, and they ate lunch on the flying boat. Long Chen spent each day playing with Xiaoyu. When she was tired, she would crawl into his lap and sleep. Long Chen held her as he chatted with his parents. But he didn't bring up anything about the cultivation world. Time passed by quickly. A week went by before Long Chen brought up his true purpose in coming here. He wanted his parents to switch to a new environment. What ashamed him was that his parents didn't even ask for a reason before agreeing. They said switching environments was good for a change of pace, but he knew they were just comforting him. His parents were both sentimental people. Back then, they had left the Phoenix Cry Empire for him, and now he was sending them to another foreign place. He was truly making things hard on them. He wanted to send them to the Huayan sect. With the Huayan sect's protection, no one would dare to touch them. Furthermore, Xiaoyu couldn't be isolated from the rest of the world. That wasn't good for her development. If they didn't like the secular world, then he could send them to the spirit world later. But that would be bad for Xiaoyu. Long Chen couldn't help being infuriated. He had gone out himself, but he had ended up implicating the normal lives of his father and mother. He couldn't even give them an ordinary life. On the 8th day, while he was accompanying Xiaoyu, the sky suddenly rumbled and a terrifying pressure descended. Another flying boat appeared. The flying boat was extremely quick, and the air rumbled as it passed through rapidly. The villagers all hid themselves in terror. As expected, they came. Ice-cold, chilling intent appeared in Long Chen's eyes. A dozen figures walked off the flying boat. One of them was holding a feng shui compass and pointing it at something. "It's right here." Everyone split up. The middle-aged man holding the feng shui compass had a long beard and mustache. He possessed a slight immortal air. But as he was speaking, he realized something was off. He realized everyone was looking in one direction. He looked up to see 3 adults and 1 child standing in front of a grass hut. But when he saw the face of the black-robed man, his expression completely changed. "You should go back and rest." "My guests have come," said Long Chen. Long Tianxiao nodded. He didn't say anything as he pulled Mrs. Long and Xiao Yu back into the grass hut. He closed the door. Long Chen. One of them stuttered out Long Chen's name. He was pale with terror. There were 3 powerful life star experts amongst their group, but in front of a single Jade Core disciple, they didn't even dare to move. "You come from Heavenly Fate Island?" Long Chen ignored the others, focusing on the middle-aged man. "Correct. This matter has nothing to do with me. My Heavenly Fate Island is only in charge of calculating things. We don't care about anything else," said the middle-aged man. Contrary to the others, he was very calm. It seemed he was very confident in the protective talisman that was the name of Heavenly Fate Island. He then turned to the others. "My mission ends here. The rest is your affair. Goodbye." The middle-aged man then took out a teleportation talisman. He immediately crushed it, and spatial runes wrapped around him. All of a sudden, a 5-colored spear pierced through his body. Not only did it break the spatial runes, but it also left a bloody hole on his body. The middle-aged man let out a miserable cry as he fell from the sky. Lightning runes sparked around his injury, causing his body to twitch. He was only a peak soul transformation expert and couldn't resist Long Chen's 5-colored lightning at all. He constantly wailed under the attack of the Thunder Force. The others glanced at each other and immediately fled. They even abandoned the flying boat and scattered in every direction. Before they could get anywhere, space shook. A cyan ripple spread, blowing those experts to pieces and extinguishing their souls. "Heaven-flipping seal, you've learned how to control your power? Nice job." Long Chen was delighted and looked up at the heaven-flipping seal that was slowly revolving in the air. The heaven-flipping seal immediately began to spin rapidly upon hearing Long Chen's praise. It was like a child. "It's been so many days, but you've only managed to grasp such a rudimentary technique. It's not worth being proud of. Hurry up and return. I'll teach you how to use your second kind of divine rune." Evelmun's harsh voice rang out. The heaven-flipping seal immediately went still and returned to Long Chen's spiritual space. "Evil Moon, the heaven-flipping seal is still like a child. Make sure to balance work and rest. Don't be too ruthless," said Long Chen. He could sense the heaven-flipping seal's fear of Evil Moon. "Stop talking nonsense. Does this little bit of strictness count for anything? My evil dragon race is tossed into a sea of slaughter as soon as we're born. We're sent into a sea of powerful beasts, and we're essentially prey for them. If we want to live, we have to rely on our own power. During that time, we are on the border of death constantly. Tisuch, is this little bit of work worth a damn?" snorted Evil Moon. Long Chen was helpless toward this. Evelmun's strong desire for slaughter was connected to the environment it had grown up in. No one could change it. He could only comfort the heaven-flipping seal. If Evil Moon was the bad cop, then he would have to be the good cop. That way the heaven-flipping seal wouldn't feel so bad. The middle-aged man was still wailing. Long Chen gave him a kick, sending him tumbling back. But after that kick, his wailing stopped. It wasn't that he had died, but that Long Chen had pulled back his Thunder Force. Although it had just been a few breaths' time, this soul transformation expert's meridians had been destroyed by the Thunder Force, and even his dantian was destroyed. He was like a living corpse now. This was the terror of 5-colored lightning. Not just anyone could resist it. It was even more terrifying than the strongest poisons. "Long Chen, you dare to attack me, a disciple of Heavenly Fate Island. You are courting death," raged the middle-aged man. He glared at Long Chen with rancor over having his dantian destroyed. This is retribution. Your heavenly fate island decided to cooperate with them to scheme against me. If you were just targeting me, although I would be angry, I could accept it. But you actually decided to target my parents. Now you've touched my reverse scale, said Long Chen coldly. That's a joke. My heavenly fate island only helps others calculate the lines of fate. We don't participate in any struggles. This is our iron law that hasn't been broken for tens of thousands of years. If you have the ability, you should find retribution with them and not cast your anger on my heavenly fate island. However, it doesn't matter anymore. You've already committed a taboo against my heavenly fate island. Now, no matter where you go in the Martial Heaven continent, you won't be able to get away. Long Chen suddenly stamped his foot down on that person's leg. The middle-aged man immediately turned white as paper and quivered intensely. The intense pain made it so he couldn't even speak. With his understanding of the human body, Long Chen was proficient in targeting the most painful parts of his enemies' bodies. The so-called iron law of your heavenly fate island might be able to restrict others, but it can't restrict me. My iron law is that whoever provokes me will endure my reprisal. Your way of speaking is just like how the Bloodkill Hall spoke back then. It was like the entire world had to play by their rules. Perhaps others are afraid of you, but I'm not. If Heavenly Fate Island doesn't give me a satisfactory explanation for this, I will sooner or later destroy it, said Long Chen coldly. You are courting death. The middle-aged man endured the pain to sneer at Long Chen. But his voice was shuddering, and the veins on his forehead almost exploded. Long Chen smiled faintly, and his killing intent vanished. He indifferently said, "It'll be clear who's courting death in the future. However, you will not see that day." Long Chen had originally been controlled by fury, and he had wanted to crush this arrogant fellow in front of him into pieces. But then he suddenly recalled what his father had said. He couldn't play along at other people's tempo. He had to give himself a chance to breathe. The more his enemy wanted to infuriate him, the more he couldn't let himself get angry. Even if he killed this person in front of him, it wouldn't resolve his current predicament. Anger was an instinct. Suppressing one's anger was the true skill. Only by suppressing his anger could he make the correct decision. Long Chen pulled the middle-aged man's finger and took off his spatial ring. Long Chen's divine sense entered it, and he saw some strange diagrams and bizarre tools. However, he didn't know how to use any of them. He pointed a finger at the middle-aged man's forehead. His spiritual strength forced its way into his mind-see. Oh, so there's a defensive restriction? Be broken. Long Chen snorted, and his spiritual strength burst out, shattering those defenses. At that moment, light exploded. A gate of light appeared in front of him, and an indistinct figure showed up from within it. This indistinct figure grew clearer until it revealed a cold-faced, white-haired elder with a strange vertical crack on his forehead. "You are Long Chen?" The elder sat cross-legged within the light, staring coldly at Long Chen like a god. "You are the boss of Heavenly Fate Island?" asked Long Chen equally coldly. The elder's eyes turned even colder. "Release the disciple of my Heavenly Fate Island. Don't make a mistake." "Are you not the boss?" sneered Long Chen. "Don't force me to kill you. No one can provoke the dignity of Heavenly Fate Island. Let me warn you, you might have some room to live after provoking Pill Valley, but if you provoke Heavenly Fate Island, you'll have no chance of surviving." The elder's gaze was sharp like a blade piercing through space to stab into Long Chen's eyes. "I don't believe you." "I want to test it," mocked Long Chen. His spiritual strength surged forward once more, attacking the middle-aged man's defenses and peering into his memories. "Since that's the case, then you can just die." This mysterious elder suddenly roared and the crack on his forehead opened. A ray of divine light shot out, actually entering Long Chen's mind-see even when they were separated by endless space. This ray of divine light was extremely strange. Long Chen couldn't block it no matter what he did, and it charged directly into the depths of his mind-see. A burst of intense pain came from Long Chen's soul. That light was trying to kill him. Long Chen was shocked. He hadn't expected there to be such a technique that allowed one to kill others even when they were in completely different places. None of his defenses were able to stop the divine light. If he allowed it to pierce straight through his mind sea, his spiritual space would collapse and he would die. Bastard, stop. Long Chen roared and summoned all his spiritual strength to form powerful spiritual walls. Unfortunately, these spiritual walls were all pierced one by one without even slowing the divine light down. I already gave you a chance, but you didn't take it. You can only blame yourself, sneered the elder like a supreme judge. Just as he sneered and Long Chen was horrified, the divine gate in the depths of Long Chen's mind sea unleashed endless divine might. The divine gate star within it emitted its own ray of divine light. The divine gate shook, and light blossomed from the divine gate star. A sacred pressure erupted. The divine gate star seemed to have been provoked, and a ray of light shot out of it. That light was larger and fiercer than the elder's light attack. The two light beams crashed together. Boom! The elder's light beam exploded, while the divine gate star's light continued onward, charging out of Long Chen's mind sea and at the elder. It happened so suddenly that neither Long Chen nor the elder could react. Boom! Divine light exploded. The middle-aged man's spiritual space and body were blown to pieces. At the same time as the middle-aged man died, in a mysterious residence an unknown distance away, an elder coughed up a mouthful of blood and let out a mournful cry. This white-haired elder was precisely the elder with a crack on his forehead who attacked through space. He was holding his forehead. Blood was currently dripping from it. The heavenly eye just condensed. Long Chen, I will kill you. Long Chen was currently stunned. Just now, things had happened so quickly that he still hadn't reacted. The elder's attack had actually ended up provoking the divine gate star. He felt a burst of lingering fear. Just now it had truly been dangerous. Although Evil Moon and the heaven-flipping seal were present in his spiritual space, if they were the ones to block it, the attack would have exploded in his spiritual space, and he would have met the same ending as the middle-aged man. The divine gate star's attack had also been a spiritual attack, instantly wiping the other side's attack out of existence and even counterattacking. Regretfully, without the middle-aged man's soul as an intermediary, there was no way for Long Chen to see what had happened to the elder. If Long Chen knew that the elder had been injured, he would definitely be smiling brightly. Heavenly Fate Island. I'll remember this enmity. Long Chen took a deep breath. He waved his hand, and a wave of golden flames blew up, eliminating the bloody stench in the air. Long Chen put away his own flying boat and used the flying boat the other side had brought. He had his family enter it. His flying boat had the mark of Pill Valley. Although he had concealed it, it meant he couldn't use it as openly as this flying boat. This flying boat was a bit small and wasn't as fast as his. But to Xiaoyu, it was always new things that were best. Once they were on the flying boat, Long Chen didn't immediately speed off back to the Central Plains. Instead, he had to go deeper into the eastern wasteland. The first place he went to was the branch Xiantian Dao sect. When he arrived, he saw that it was empty. All the people within had vanished. Even the monasteries and super-monasteries had mostly been disbanded, with only a few people left to look after them. Seeing this, Long Chen was at ease. He knew that Zheng Wenlong had arranged this to prevent him from worrying. Zheng Wenlong was truly dependable. In the end, Long Chen activated the flying boat's stealth ability and slowly flew over to the Phoenix Cry Empire. He had it float in the air above. The Phoenix Cry Empire was still flourishing. Under the rule of the former fourth prince, Chu Yao's little brother, the empire and its people were prospering. He was actually a formidable ruler. Long Chen's divine sense spread throughout the city. He saw Fatty Yu, Shou Ho, Shi Feng and the others. They were now in high positions. As for the border suppression Marquis's former land, it was extremely lively, with a flood of people coming and going. This place had been completely renovated and was extremely grand. There was a huge statue within the main mansion. It was of Long Tianxiao. As the border suppression Marquis, Long Tianxiao had become a hero of the empire. His loyalty to the common people and his defense of the empire had won him the entire empire's respect and gratitude. Seeing that statue, Long Tianshao couldn't help but sigh emotionally. Mrs. Long teared up from the sight, and Xiao Yu helped her wipe away her tears. Only after floating there for a while did Long Chen bring his family to the martial heaven searing. When they saw the endless sea, Xiao Yu cried out excitedly. Even Mrs. Long was shocked by the size of the sea. Their sadness caused by leaving their home was replaced by this novelty. Personally, seeing all these new sights shocked them. The sight of the huge waves and buffeting winds was one that made humans feel minuscule. Xiao Yu was lying in the front of the flying boat and had the best view. Suddenly, a huge mouth devoured the flying boat. Ah! Long Chen pressed a button lightly, and a ray of light shot out of the flying boat, blowing a hole in the mouth that the flying boat continued through. Long Tianshao turned back just in time to see the strange fish. The fish's head was practically as large as a mountain, but it was killed in one attack from the flying boat. Wow, big brother, you're so powerful. Xiao Yu looked at Long Chen worshipfully. You can do the same. Come, I'll teach you how to control the flying boat. Long Chen beckoned. He truly did love her and wanted to pamper her. Long Chen, don't spoil her. How could a child control such a huge object? Said Mrs. Long worriedly. It's fine. In any case, it's free and I won't mind if it gets ruined. I have plenty of flying boats. Long Chen smiled. Mrs. Long shook her head helplessly. But as she watched Long Chen teach his sister which symbol was for attack, defense, charging forward, and dropping down, his sincere appearance elicited a gratified smile. Suddenly, under Xiao Yu's control, the flying boat tilted downward and smashed into the sea. It then bounced back up and then down again. Long Chen hastily reached out to help, allowing the flying boat to regain its balance in the air. Xiao Yu was pale with fright. It's fine, making a mistake at the start is normal. You're a fast learner, comforted Long Chen. Xiao Yu truly was smart. She remembered things very quickly. After 2 hours, thanks to Long Chen's teachings, Xiao Yu had basically learned how to control the flying boat. Whenever they encountered a sea demon, she would launch an attack and destroy it. That grand feeling was indescribable. The flying boat was filled with her excited cries, and the atmosphere was very lively. Long Chen was also very gratified. He knew that as long as she was happy, his parents would also be happy. Their mood depended on Xiao Yu. What they were worried about the most was that Xiao Yu would be unhappy about going to a new world. But now they found that she was practically a wild child and curious about everything. She had no fear of the unknown world. Dad, I've decided to change plans. Instead of the Huayan sect, I'm thinking of sending you to the Wine God Palace. Once the waves calm down, you can then go to the Huayan sect. What do you think about that? Asked Long Chen. The Wine God Palace? Alright, I fully approve. Do you think you could ask them if I could become a full member of the Wine God Palace? Long Tianshao immediately agreed. You wine addict, are you basing your decision on the right motives? Demanded Mrs. Long, of course. I simply feel like I should go somewhere where I can make a living and create a home for us, away from trouble. Long Tianshao had a righteous expression, but neither Long Chen nor Mrs. Long believed it. Fine, I admit this decision might have been backed by the slightest of selfish motives. But just the slightest. Long Chen laughed. Dad, you should give up on joining the Wine God Palace. Mom definitely won't accept it. The Wine God Palace would definitely accept you considering your understanding of the heavenly Daos and wine, but the Wine God Palace's disciples must have no cares for the rest of the world, and must be fully immersed in the wine Dao. They have to abandon everything other than wine. Can you do that? Definitely not. Fine, just pretend I never said anything, said Long Tianshao disappointedly. Only then did Mrs. Long's expression improve slightly. She naturally didn't want Long Tianshao to be distracted by such things. She would rather they always be together. The reason Long Chen had changed plans was mostly because of that mysterious elder from Heavenly Fate Island. He was worried the Huayan sect would be unable to protect his family. After all, the Huayan sect's power was stretched throughout the continent and not concentrated. It might be possible for Heavenly Fate Island to take advantage of some small openings. He didn't want to be careless. So after considering it, the safest options were to send them to the spirit world directly or to the Wine God Palace. Based on the current situation, only the Wine God Palace could guarantee their safety. As for his other allies, whether it was the Huayun sect or the Heaven-Splitting Battle sect, they weren't as dependable. He also didn't want to send them to the spirit world. The main reason for this was his little sister. Being forced to live isolated from the world was unfair to her. She needed to learn how to interact with others, and she needed to experience the joy and privilege a child should experience. The flying boat flew rapidly. On the way to the eastern wasteland, Long Chen hadn't run into many sea demons, but now that Xiaoyu was flying, sea demons appeared quite often. However, she easily activated the flying boat's offensive measures to kill them. She cried out excitedly as to her, controlling the flying boat was a fun and stimulating game. After several days, the flying boat finally reached the other side of the martial heaven sea ring, entering the central plains. Long Chen brought them over to the Grand Xia ancient nation. Once they were close, Long Chen put away the flying boat and randomly captured a 6th-rank magical beast as a mount to carry them to the border. This was the same place he had entered the Grand Xia ancient nation from the first time he had come. The guard captain had been very courteous and even treated him to some wine. "Stop here. Hand over your identity plate." "Long Chen?" At the top of the border town's gates, a person stopped halfway, staring at Long Chen in disbelief. "Chi Hao." Long Chen couldn't help being stunned. This person was precisely the guard he had seen the first time he had entered the Grand Xia ancient nation, Chi Hao. He had even treated Long Chen to some wine. Back then, the two had ended up bonding over the Grand Han ancient nation's despicable and shameless actions. It was because of that bonding that they had talked like old friends, and Long Chen had given him a few medicinal pills. "Haha, so you still remember me. I'll be able to brag about that in the future," laughed Chi Hao. He jumped off the gates and ran over. He was originally going for a handshake, but Long Chen gave him a fierce hug. "Even after all this time, you're still guarding here? It seems you still haven't gotten the hang of the Grand Xia's bureaucratic culture," teased Long Chen. Chi Hao was extremely moved that Long Chen still remembered him. Just what kind of figure was Long Chen? Even surrounded by enemies, he had slaughtered his way out. After his fight on Devil Spirit Mountain, his fight against 3 Empyreans, breaking out of a seal created by 3 divine items, destroying dozens of sects, he was the #1 figure in the Eastern Shen region. "Long Chen, you came here thanks to Prince Yunchong's invitation, right? Good, with you present, the Grand Han won't dare to be arrogant," cried Chi Hao excitedly. "Invitation? The Grand Han? What's going on?" Long Chen was startled. "You weren't invited to come and help?" Chi Hao was surprised. "I came this time because I have some things to discuss with the Wine God Palace." "Did something happen in the Grand Xia? Wasn't the Grand Han on the verge of destruction?" asked Long Chen. "This isn't the place to talk. Come, let's talk inside. These people are?" Long Chen hastily gave the introductions. When Chi Hao learned they were Long Chen's parents, he hastily greeted them as a junior would to a senior. He then led them into the town and found them a place to rest before ordering some food. Xiaoyu seemed to be addicted to playing, and Chi Hao called over 4 people to accompany her as she played on the town walls. Mrs. Long wasn't at ease with just that and also went to accompany her. Now only Long Chen, Long Tianxiao, and Chi Hao were present. They were drinking wine and eating. Chi Hao began to tell them of the recent changes in the Grand Xia ancient nation. After the 4 nations ancient remnant closed last time, the Grand Han ancient nation's capital had been essentially destroyed by a formation expert called Xiaqin. Everyone had thought that the Grand Han would quickly collapse and be consumed by the Grand Xia, Grand Zhou, and Grand Chu. However, despite its core being destroyed, the Grand Han suddenly began to produce one expert after another. It was unknown where they were getting the support for this, but it was like these experts were sprouting out of the dirt. The Grand Han not only recovered, but their power became greater than ever. Unfortunately, Chi Hao was not a core figure of the Grand Xia and didn't know the inner workings behind this. But his guess was that there was some great force supporting the Grand Han from the shadows. He guessed that these geniuses that were rising out of the Grand Han were not actually the Grand Han's people. They were very likely people from various sections. However, these geniuses all claimed to be from the Grand Han. They claimed that they were born and grew up there. It was just that they were secretly raised until this time, like a demon sword storing up energy until it broke out its seal in one blow. The rate of the Grand Han's growth could be described as monstrous. Rank 7 Celestials were like dogs, rank 8 Celestials were common, and even rank 9 Celestials weren't that rare. The Grand Han had actually produced 3 rank 9 Celestials. Most terrifying of all, half a year ago, the Grand Han announced that they had produced their first Empyrean. An Empyrean? How is that possible? Now Long Chen jumped in shock. Empyreans were geniuses born through karmic luck. They needed an incredible amount of karmic luck as a foundation to be born. The Grand Han couldn't possibly be in possession of that much karmic luck. Furthermore, even if they had given birth to an Empyrean with their wealth, there was no way for them to raise one. Phoenixes did not land in worthless places. There was no way to raise an Empyrean in a place as poor as the Grand Han. Back then, Xia Yuncheng's father, Xia Yuyang, had told Long Chen about karmic luck. The 4 nations' karmic luck was not enough to give birth to Empyreans. In that case, there was only one possibility, and that was someone was supporting them secretly. With the Grand Han's shameless methods, such a thing could definitely happen. They were using other people's geniuses to put up a front. So that's why it's so exaggerated. We started getting suspicious as soon as they started producing that many rank 7 and rank 8 Celestials. Then let alone rank 9 Celestials, they even produced an Empyrean. Don't you think that's too fake? Absolutely shameless, cursed Qi Hao. Qi Hao drank a mouthful of wine and continued, now the Grand Han is acting strangely. The Grand Xia, Grand Zhou, and Grand Chu are all a bit afraid. The main thing is that they don't know just who is supporting the Grand Han. We've tried to investigate them, but we find that these geniuses have never appeared in the eastern Xian region. It seems like they were really born in the Grand Han. Long Chen sank into thought. If they haven't appeared in the eastern Xian region, what about the other regions? The other regions? No way. Who would have the ability to draw over geniuses from the other regions? Gasped Qi Hao. Long Chen smiled faintly and didn't say anything. If his guess was accurate, then it probably was only them who had this ability. It seemed their hands had stretched even deeper than he had thought. He felt like he had previously been thinking too simply about them. After saying a few more things, he got up and called for Xiaoyu and Mrs. Long Qi Hao personally sent them onto the transportation formation. Long Chen, this time, you must protect the face of the Grand Xia and give them a vicious slap, called out Qi Hao. Long Chen gave him a thumbs up and activated the formation. He was sent straight outside the Grand Xia's capital. As soon as he arrived and before he could even see what was around him, the people in charge of registering the people arriving let out startled cries. You, report to Xia Yuncheng that I've arrived, but don't tell the others. Have Xia Yuncheng come find me at the Wine God Palace, said Long Chen to those people. Naturally, there was no one in the Grand Xia that didn't recognize him. He had a definite emotional connection to the Grand Xia, having once taken on the mantle of their general just for appearance's sake. The attendants hastily flew out. Long Chen took out a cloak and covered his face, not wanting to cause too great of a fuss. He led his family into the city, and the capital was flourishing just as it had been. Xiaoyu was looking in every direction, soaking in the sights. Xiaoyu, I'm sorry I can't accompany you to play in the streets. We have to do our work first before play, understand? Asked Long Chen as he held her hand. Yes. Xiaoyu nodded obediently. Long Chen led them forward. He saw many people wearing very conspicuous strange clothes on the streets. The robes of the Grand Han? Have they once more come to poison the Grand Xia's youths? Sneered Long Chen. Long Chen ignored them and continued on his way. But he just happened to bump shoulders with another group. Are you blind? Or did you not bring your eyes? Cursed a woman wearing a large dress. Her dress now had part of a small footprint on it, but it was so small that it was impossible to see without looking closely. Sorry, I'm very sorry, apologized Mrs. Long. You think it's enough to apologize? Are all the Grand Xia's people so rude and don't even know how to walk? Considering our large group, don't you think you should have walked to the side? Why did you have to get close to us? Were you trying to steal our things? Demanded the woman. They had a total of 56 people wearing luxurious robes. They seemed to possess quite a high status. As for Mrs. Long, she was wearing her ordinary clothes. In comparison, she naturally appeared lower in class. In truth, Mrs. Long had been quite a rare beauty in her youth. Later, because the Long family had declined, she had worked so hard that she had ended up aging early. Thanks to Long Chen, her beauty had been restored, and she looked to be no more than 30, in the prime of her beauty. This woman clearly contained some envy toward her. Or perhaps she simply felt that Mrs. Long's clothes were too low class, so she could refuse to accept her apology. Cursing people is wrong. This footprint wasn't made by my mom. Xiaoyu was the first to interject to protect her mother. Where did this brat come from? You dare to randomly shout on the streets? Is the entire Grand Xia just like this dash? Clean your mouth before you speak. My sister is correct. This footprint wasn't done by my mother, as it doesn't match her shoe. I'll give you one chance to apologize to my mother and sister right now. Otherwise, you won't even have a chance to regret it, said Long Chen coldly. Brazen peasant, you dare? Today, if you don't kowtow to me, this matter won't end, shouted a large man in their group. His voice was extremely loud, frightening Xiaoyu. She hid behind Long Chen, and he hastily comforted her. Don't be afraid. You're a bit sleepy. Once you go to sleep, everything will be over. Following Long Chen's words, Xiaoyu suddenly felt a wave of exhaustion and fell asleep. Dad? Long Chen looked at Long Tianxiao. Calling for your father is useless. If you don't kneel and beg for forgiveness, you can give up on leaving, sneered the man. At this time, there was already a large group of people watching. They were all infuriated by what they were seeing, but no one came up. I understand. Long Tianxiao nodded and lightly patted Mrs. Long on the back. She immediately collapsed, and he carried her on his back. Long Chen, while holding Xiaoyu, turned to those people. He coldly said, As I said, I won't give you a chance to regret it. He raised his finger and pointed at the sneering woman who had intentionally found trouble for them. A bolt of lightning flew out. Blood splashed as the lightning pierced her head. The cold smile still hung on her face, but her eyes lost their light. With a thumping sound, she landed on the ground. He killed someone with a point of his finger, making the men and women wearing the Grand Han's robes shocked. It had to be known that they were no ordinary people. They were all powerful cultivators. Although their celestial rankings weren't very high, they had reached the foundation forging realm. Seeing that they couldn't sense Long Chen's aura, they assumed that he was an ordinary person. After all, amongst Long Chen's group of 4, the only one whose aura they could sense was Long Tianxiao, and he was only at the late meridian opening realm. As he hadn't even reached the Xiantian realm, they naturally didn't view them as a threat. However, Long Chen killed a rank 5 foundation forging celestial with a point of his finger, without her being able to resist. Bastard, how dare you use a secret mechanism to attack? Die! Roared one of them, thinking Long Chen had used some kind of hidden mechanism to kill her. Long Chen snorted, and he caught that person's fist. He twisted it ever so slightly, and a cracking sound rang out. That person's arm was forcibly torn off at the shoulder by Long Chen. Ah! That person let out a pained cry. His face twisted from the pain, and blood quickly covered his luxurious robes. Good! When Long Chen tore off that person's arm, someone in the crowd couldn't help but cheer. In the past few months, experts from the Grand Han had been coming to the Grand Xia quite a bit. They were all powerful cultivators and large bullies. They would often cause trouble on purpose, while the Grand Xia's imperial family adopted a restrained attitude. The Grand Xia had issued orders saying that people were to do their best not to cause conflicts with them. The commoners didn't know what the higher-ups were thinking, but they were extremely dissatisfied with these orders. These people that intentionally ran over to the Grand Xia to cause trouble were just that hateful. "Who are you?" shouted one of the Grand Han's people. Long Chen's face was still half covered by his cloak, making it so they couldn't tell who he was. When people tried to look with their divine sense, they found spiritual strength blocking them. Long Chen didn't say anything. He merely raised another finger, and a bolt of lightning flashed. Another one of them was killed by a lightning arrow to the head. He collapsed on the ground lifelessly. The Grand Han's experts were shocked. When the first woman was killed, it had happened too suddenly for them to see. But this time they saw it clearly. Long Chen had slowly raised his finger and pointed it at the person he had just killed. That person had clearly been terrified, but he hadn't dodged. He had just waited there for Long Chen to kill him, as if there was some energy suppressing him, preventing him from moving. After that person was killed, Long Chen pointed his finger at another. That person's face instantly turned pale, and he let out a terrified cry as he tried to run. He had only just turned and raised one of his feet when his body stiffened. A lightning arrow shot through his head. In just a moment, 3 of the Grand Han's experts were killed. The commoners within the capital of the Grand Xia all felt their blood blazing with excitement. The Grand Han's unreasonable bullying had long since provoked their anger. Now that Long Chen had killed some, they felt like he was venting their anger. "These 3 insulted my family and touched my reverse scale. As I said, I didn't give them any chance to regret it. As for you, you didn't insult my family and only attacked me. I took your arm as the price. Now I'm going to leave. If anyone wants to stop me, be prepared for it to cost your life." Long Chen started walking again while still holding his sleeping sister. Long Tianxiao followed while carrying his wife. However, Long Chen had only taken a few steps when several figures rushed over from ahead. These people had much stronger cultivation bases. They were soul transformation experts, and the heavenly Tao pressure from them was stronger, marking them as rank 8 celestials. Seeing those people, the previous group of Grand Han experts, who had been frightened into wooden chickens, immediately became revitalized and shouted, "Senior apprentice brothers, these bastards killed our members." That person's shout was cut off when a figure appeared in front of him like a phantom. A large hand tightly caught his throat. "You don't know what respect is. Being merciful to you really is unnecessary. Since that's the case, you can all die." Now Long Chen's voice was like thunder and full of killing intent. The heads of these people exploded all at once. Only one young woman remained, covered in blood and too terrified to move. This woman was the only one who hadn't immediately thought of revenge when she saw these experts coming from ahead. So the rest had all died, while she was the sole survivor. "Bastard, you dare to kill the experts of my Grand Han? You'll pay the price for your foolishness." One of the Grand Han's rank 8 celestials charged over with a sword. A cold light flashed like lightning. This one attack was incredibly powerful, and if it landed on the ground, the street would crumble. It was unknown how many of the commoners watching the battle would be killed by the results. Long Chen's killing intent blazed. These people didn't even view the Grand Xia's people as human. Although he wasn't a member of the Grand Xia, he had a definite connection to the Grand Xia, and he was infuriated. Long Chen reached out, intent on catching the blade with his bare hand. This sword was not an ancestral item, but it was extremely sharp. The rank 8 celestial sneered. Originally, he had been holding back lightly, but now he unleashed all his power, wanting to blow Long Chen to bits. As for the other people around, he didn't care. A sharp sound rang out when it slashed into Long Chen's hand. However, that sound ended in an instant, and the immense pressure from that person's attack also vanished. What? The other Grand Han experts were stunned. From the start to the end, Long Chen hadn't used his cultivation base. He had blocked that person's full-strength attack with just the power of his physical body. They immediately started to get a bad feeling. Long Chen gripped the sword and turned his wrist slightly. The sword snapped in half, and the broken half in his hand suddenly slashed back toward the rank 8 celestial. Blood rained down as that rank 8 celestial was cut in two. The other experts were all stunned. However, they had already started launching their own attacks and couldn't stop in time. Long Chun snorted and swung the broken blade in his hand. A huge sword image devoured those experts. Blood mist exploded as those experts were blown to bits along with their weapons. For a moment, the streets were so quiet that it was possible to hear the drop of a single pin. Everyone stared in shock at the mysterious, cloaked man who was still holding a broken blade. Long Chun dropped the blade to the ground. Carefully holding his sister, he switched her to a more comfortable position and continued walking forward. Long Tianxiao followed as well, and he stared at Long Chen's back proudly. This was his son. His son had gone from a tiny child to an unrivaled hero. The most gratifying thing to him was that despite Long Chen growing so strong, he didn't let his new power cause him to lose his bearing. As much as possible, it was best to leave leeway and not implicate the innocent. He had seen everything Long Chen had done to spare the innocent. He was full of pride for his son. Long Chen quickly arrived in front of the Wine God Palace. Hence, he woke up Xiaoyu and Mrs. Long. They entered the gates. The disciple at the entrance instantly recognized Long Chen, as his fame in the Wine God Palace was extremely great. The medicinal wine formulas he had come up with had greatly benefited all the Wine God Palace's disciples, and they were very grateful to him. That disciple hastily opened the path for Long Chen, indicating that he could go on his own without anyone restricting him. Once he was inside the Wine God Palace, Long Chen relaxed quite a bit. Perhaps it was only within the Wine God Palace that a person could fully forget their worries and troubles. In this aspect, they were even superior to the spirit world. After entering the Wine God Palace, it felt like a mysterious energy was cleansing his mind, allowing him to fully relax. It truly is a good place, sighed Long Tianxiao emotionally. Xiaoyu and Mrs. Long weren't able to sense it, but as a cultivator, he was greatly affected by the scenery and artistic realm that filled the Wine God Palace. Mr. Long Chen, you've finally returned. I have some wine that is anxiously waiting for your appraisal. Long Chen had just reached the first pavilion when a disciple came out to block his path. This was precisely the first disciple he had conned wine out of his first time in the Wine God Palace. Long Chen's words had enlightened him and allowed him to progress greatly on his wine dao. Hence, he had always eagerly waited for Long Chen to return and appraise his new wine. I'm a bit busy today. I have to go see the high priest. How about another day? Said Long Chen. If it was during normal times, he would naturally be delighted to drink the Wine God Palace's fine wine and then brag about his amazing knowledge. But unfortunately, he didn't have the time, and he wasn't in the mood. That's fine. I'll just give you my wine. You can taste it whenever and come guide me when you're free. That person hastily took out some wine. Long Chen was extremely embarrassed by how highly this disciple viewed him, and he could only accept his wine before continuing onward. As he continued, more of the Wine God Palace's disciples came to greet him. Seeing Long Chen's relationships with other people were so good, Mrs. Long was smiling brightly. She even stealthily whispered to him that one of the young women was quite good, meaning he should get even closer to her. Long Chen almost coughed up blood. That woman might look young, but her age was definitely frightening. His mother's imagination was absolutely terrifying. Taste my blade. Long Chen was in the midst of continuing forward when a large, burly man appeared and attacked Long Chen without saying anything further. Cold saber light slashed at Long Chen. This move was very sudden but didn't contain any pressure. However, there was a kind of fierce and unyielding will within it. Bang! Long Chen smiled and let out a punch. Two invisible wills clashed, as both he and that person retreated a step. Fatty too, this is your greeting? This person was the fierce young butcher, Tu Qiansheng. Currently, he had reached the middle stage of the Life Star realm. Back when Long Chen had first come to the Wine God Palace, Tu Qiansheng had been stuck at a bottleneck and unable to progress past the peak of soul transformation. Now, in just over a year, he had progressed to the midlife star realm. That showed just how long he had been stuck and what a solid foundation he had built for himself. Now his cultivation base was rising at a shocking speed. During this time, Long Chen had killed an unknown number of life star experts. But in that exchange just now, he had sensed power 100 times greater than other life star experts. Even if you ignored the power behind Tu Qianshang's attack, just his powerful spirit was enough to make the will of his enemies crumble. Ah, Longchen, it really is you. You are getting stronger. Tu Qianshang's laughter was like thunder. He had conveniently tested Long Chen's power with his greeting. Xiaoyu, don't be afraid. Greet your big brother Fatty. Long Chen smiled and pulled over Xiaoyu, who was hiding behind his back. Oh, big brother, Fatty. Xiaoyu let out a quiet greeting with her head down. Tu Qianshang's appearance was quite frightening. Even adults wouldn't dare to look him in the eye. Fatty? Big brother? Tu Qianshang's expression became odd. The name of the famous fierce young butcher had shaken the continent 3,000 years ago. Now this girl was calling him big brother? When he thought about it, he supposed that when he drank wine with Long Chen, they didn't let seniority affect their friendship. He had never viewed Long Chen as a junior, and Long Chen had never viewed him as a senior. They viewed each other purely as brothers. Alright, little sister, said Tu Qianshang helplessly. Fatty, how are you getting more and more shameless? Did she call you big brother for nothing? Don't you even have a greeting gift to give her? Don't tell me all this fat of yours was accumulated through being stingy toward others? Demanded Long Chen. Tu Qianshang's expression immediately turned purple. He was someone who had escaped the mundane world. Other than wine and his saber, he had nothing else. What was he supposed to give a little girl as a gift? He knew Long Chen did this on purpose. This was the revenge for his greeting. Chener, don't be rude. You're the one with the thick face. Gifts are supposed to be given freely by others. How can you demand a gift from others? Said Mrs. Long. Tu Qianshang was extremely grateful to her. He accompanied them to the high priest's residence. Long Chen, you're not doing too bad for yourself. The entire eastern Xian region is in chaos because of you. Compared to you, what I did back in my day was nothing more than a small scuffle. Tu Qianshang gave Long Chen a thumbs up. Compared to the other disciples of the Wine God Palace, Tu Qianshang was more connected to the rest of the world. He had a certain understanding of the news sweeping through the continent. Long Chen's name had long since shaken the entire eastern Xian region. Even these wine cultivators who didn't care about the rest of the world had heard of it. Back in his day, Tu Qianshang had gotten revenge on the ancient races for the death of his brother. Now, Long Chen was hunted by the entire world. His enemies didn't just include the ancient races, but also the righteous path, corrupt path, ancient family alliance, bloodkill hall, and so on. The most shocking thing was that he had even destroyed a pill tower. That was a vicious slap to Pill Valley's face. So even Tu Qianshang praised Long Chen's guts. Previously, whenever Tu Qianshang mentioned how he had fought against the ancient races and exterminated quite a few of them, he had been quite prideful. But now he found that this pride was a joke in front of Long Chen. Hee, I was just blindly messing around. Is the Wine God Palace doing well these days? Long Chen intentionally changed the subject. He didn't want to talk about this here. If it was just the two of them, he naturally wouldn't mind bragging a bit. But right now, his mother was present. He didn't want to worry her. Tu Qianshang wasn't a fool and immediately understood. He said, "It's thanks to you. Your medicinal wine formulas have benefited us greatly. Speaking of which, how was the realm of my greeting?" Not bad. Long Chen forced himself to say this. What is that supposed to mean? Long Chen's reply was very unsatisfactory to Tu Qianshang. Do you really need me to say it? Fine, what I mean is, amongst everyone your progress is the slowest. The attack of yours contained the peak of the Yang path. It was fierce and domineering, but it only contained the slightest trace of the soft Yin side. If I wasn't familiar with you, I wouldn't have even been able to sense it. So I said not bad, mostly because I've drunk so much of your wine. I just feel bad criticizing you, said Long Chen helplessly. Although Long Chen's cultivation base was not as high as Tu Qianshang's, his eyesight was very sharp. Tu Qianshang had always pursued the domineering Yang side, wanting to push that Yang side to the peak. Such a path was limited. So when Long Chen had prepared the medicinal wine formulas for him, he had added in the softer Yin side. These wine formulas had even been praised by the high priest, and he had said that they were very suitable for Tu Qiansheng. Unfortunately, this was incredibly difficult for Tu Qiansheng. It was like asking a fierce butcher to put down his blade and wield handkerchiefs in a graceful and light dance. That sight was practically unimaginable. So even after all this time, Tu Qiansheng had only progressed very slightly on that path. His progress was the slowest amongst the Wine God Palace's disciples. His character was just too fierce, and it was difficult to change it. Then what should I do? Demanded Tu Qiansheng, vexed. He naturally understood the reasoning behind this, but he just wasn't capable of doing so. Perhaps you should find a female fatty to study with you. Long Chen shrugged. He raised his eyebrows a couple of times. That appearance, it was a bit wretched. Are you serious? Tu Qiansheng was stunned. What, do you think I would trick you? But the Wine God Palaces are prohibited from marrying, said Tu Qiansheng. What? How are you so perverted? What I was saying is, you should find a woman to discuss the Tao with. You should learn from each other, one man and woman, one yin and one yang, one soft and one hard. Yin and yang cannot exist without each other. You need to learn how to control yin energy, and to do that, you need to learn what yin is, what softness is. It's not like I was telling you to do that. How are you so dirty-minded? What are you thinking about all day? Demanded Long Chen disdainfully. Tu Qiansheng glared at him, knowing that he had been conned again. Young friend Long Chen, you really are the blessing of my Wine God Palace. Long Chen came to a stop. He realized that they had arrived in front of the high priest's residence without him noticing. The lean and hearty high priest looked the same as ever and was standing outside. Seeing him actually come out to greet him, Long Chen hastily bowed. Long Tianshao, Mrs. Long, and Xiaoyu followed suit. When Long Chen stated his true purpose in coming here, the high priest laughed. My Wine God Palace hasn't had guests staying long-term for a long time. Just like you said, yin and yang cannot exist on their own. We must be both apart from the world and a part of the world. The Wine God Palace has been cheerless lately, and having a few guests will be good. I will represent the Wine God Palace in welcoming our new guests. Hong Yan, bring our respected guests for a tour. A female disciple appeared and smilingly held Xiaoyu's hand as she led Long Chen's family away to familiarize themselves with their new home. Many thanks, High Priest. Long Chen gratefully bowed. Long Chen was especially grateful now. The Wine God Palace was supposed to be a pure cultivation land for wine, and it never allowed outsiders in. The High Priest was entirely giving him face. Originally, with Long Chen's pride, he would never beg others. But within the entire continent, only the Wine God Palace had the power to guarantee his family's protection, and the High Priest hadn't hesitated to agree. Long Chen made sure to remember this favor. Come in. The high priest smiled and beckoned Long Chen into his residence. He took out a jar of wine and poured out 2 cups, handing one to Long Chen. Long Chen gratefully received it with 2 hands. Looking at the wine, he cried out in shock. High priest, you succeeded? Long Chen saw that the wine had countless small bubbles flowing within it naturally. They were flowing slowly but never paused, revolving according to a profound trajectory. It was like the transformations of heaven and earth were represented within it. It can't count as a success. It's just an initial advance, and it's thanks to your help. Your brazen ideas and inferences were what gave me the insights to break through my bottleneck and advance once more. Don't you want to taste it? The high priest smiled warmly. Long Chen took a sip of the wine and almost choked. Sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, all the flavors of life were intertwining. This flavor was overwhelming. This definitely couldn't count as fine wine, but it couldn't count as bad wine either. It was almost impossible to swallow. However, when it entered his stomach, the wine began to circulate in it, and then streams of energy flowed through his body. What shocked him was that his 108,000 stars activated on their own to absorb the wine energy. At the same time, streams of energy entered his mind, and it immediately became empty. He entered a state of total enlightenment. His thought process became incomparably clear, and he almost seemed to grasp some kind of profound law. That feeling was indescribable. Good wine. After an unknown amount of time, Long Chen slowly opened his eyes. "Oh, what about it is good?" asked the high priest with a smile. "It's good in that it's free." Long Chen also smiled. "Ha," laughed the high priest. "Hee, it was just a joke. If I were to compare your wine to a painting, then last time, the wine you gave me was a vast masterpiece containing every aspect of the world and endless profundities. However, my cultivation base was too low to comprehend those profundities. Yet this time, you didn't give me a painting but a white piece of paper. You also provided every possible color of the paint. The first one was too profound for me to understand, and even if I did, I would only be able to copy it. But now you've given me my own canvas and paint, along with the 100 flavors of life, so I can plot and extrapolate my own Tao onto it. I can clearly sense the difference between the two realms contained within your first and second wines. The former was a shaped demonstration, while the latter is a shapeless teaching. Last time, because the high priest's wine contained a realm that was far too distant from his level, Long Chen could only feel that he was extremely minute, and he didn't gain anything. This time, the high priest's realm had clearly increased to a whole new level. Before, his wine was vast like a sea, surging with such power that only peerless experts could control it. Now, his wine was a clear spring, and the water could be drawn up at will. Although the opening to the spring looked small, who knew how vast the source of its water was? Who would dare to say for sure that the source of the spring was not just as vast as a sea? One looked vast, but while it looked big, it had to have an end. The other looked smaller and more reserved, but had a limitless foundation. The possibilities that existed for it were limitless. No wonder you were capable of shaking the entire eastern Shen region. This perception is quite terrifying. I gave all my wine god palace's disciples a chance to taste this new wine, but none of them were capable of putting it like this, praised the high priest. Hee, that's because I'm examining it from the viewpoint of someone outside the wine Tao. When I drink this wine, I am a blank piece of paper. But their papers already have their colors on them, which have restricted their cultivation paths. That's why they can only see things related to their own paths. High priest, this wine is a priceless treasure to me. This state of clear-mindedness can allow me to extrapolate many things. So about that, Long Chen laughed mischievously, his meaning obvious. The high priest laughed. Even if we had no relationship, I would have to reward you for evaluating the essence of my wine. Tell me, how much do you want? You know me. I'm not greedy. However much you want to give, I'll take. Long Chen's skin was definitely as thick as a city wall. In one way, it sounded like Long Chen wouldn't mind no matter how much the high priest gave, but the real meaning was that Long Chen wanted as much as he could have. The high priest didn't mind. He took out 2-foot-tall jugs. This wine is extremely difficult to make. Of 9 jugs, 6 failed and are essentially poison wine. Only 3 succeeded. If you like it, you can take them all. This wine was so difficult to make that even the high priest wasn't able to have a high success rate from creating it. The poison wine's realm had become muddled, and a person who drank might become insane. Many thanks, high priest. Long Chen was delighted. He naturally wanted it. This was practically divine wine to him. He could use this wine's special ability to create his own magical arts. The most marvelous aspect of this wine was the clear-minded state it allowed someone to enter. It gave them a blank piece of paper. Long Chen could add his own paint to this blank paper to test things. If the test failed, that was fine. He would retreat from that realm and enter again. It was like switching out to another blank piece of paper. Long Chen graciously accepted the 2 new jugs and the original jug the high priest had taken out. The original was half empty, but his skin was still thick enough to take it. Standing on courtesy? No, that wasn't Long Chen's style. I should be thanking you. Your brazen thinking has benefited me greatly, said the high priest. As Long Chen and the high priest were talking, the sound of footsteps rang out from outside. Xia Yunchong and Xia Yuluo had arrived. Xia Yunchong still looked the same, but his aura had become more reserved. He had reached the soul transformation realm. Because he had just advanced, his aura was in the midst of slowly condensing. He was about to reach the first heaven stage. As for Xiao Yuluo, she was still as beautiful as ever, but that arrogance and willfulness of a princess had vanished, replaced with maturity and humility. Although the Xia Yuluo in front of him was much easier to be friends with, Long Chen still preferred that willful girl. Sometimes, a person's flaws would be more memorable than their strong points. Perhaps this was individuality. However, individuality would often change through the baptism of time and trials. To adapt to life, it might vanish forever. It's been a few days, but the two of you are as graceful as ever. That's worthy of celebration, so come, let me treat you to some wine. Long Chen beckoned the two of them. Being unconstrained when it came to old friends would make them feel closer. The high priest smiled and left, leaving this place for the three of them to reminisce. Long Chen, I really missed you. Once the high priest was gone, there was no need to be constrained at all. Hence, Xia Yunchong charged forward and gave Long Chen a hug. From the start, the two of them had been like brothers. Xia Yunchong walked the undefeatable Dao, and his character was very similar to Long Chen's. Now that they met again, although Xia Yunchong had reached the soul transformation realm while Long Chen was stuck at the peak of Jade Core, the difference between the two had only grown greater. Now Long Chen was the fiercest figure in the eastern Xian region. Long Chen hugged back. Suddenly, he let go and turned to Xia Yuluo. Come, little girl, give your big uncle a hug. Xia Yuluo immediately turned red. She hadn't even decided whether she wanted to or not, but Long Chen had already embraced her. Xia Yuluo trembled slightly. In his embrace, she felt warmer and safer than she had ever felt before. Back then, it had been her selfishness that had resulted in her becoming a bargaining chip against Xia Yunchong's undefeatable Dao in the Four Nations' ancient remnant. Whenever she felt remorse, helplessness, and loneliness, it was this embrace that made her feel warm. Now that she was in it again, everything that had happened back then came rushing back toward her. The bickering when they had first met on the streets, the con that they had done in the Wine God Palace, the imperial banquet, the fight outside the palace, all those scenes surfaced one by one like she was reliving them. Just as Xia Yuluo was lost in her memories, Long Chen let go of her, returning her to reality. Having lost his embrace, she felt an indescribable feeling of loss. Now, Long Chen was dragging Xia Yunchong into the room and taking out his wine. Xia Yuluo simply followed and sat beside Xia Yunchong silently. Xia Yunchong glanced at her. Sensing the change in her emotions, he couldn't help but feel sad for her. Ever since Xia Yuluo had tried to kill herself and Long Chen had saved her, she had matured overnight, practically becoming a new person. To not be arrogant, to not be willful, to become hardworking and earnest, these were good things. But Xia Yunchong knew that her heart would forever have a person's figure within it. He had tried persuading her to find her own happiness. However, her response was that she wouldn't fall in love with anyone. She wouldn't marry anyone either, or if she really had to, she would only do it for the Grand Xia ancient nation. She would forever be loyal to the Grand Xia's people to repay them for her sins. Xia Yuluo thought that it was a stain on her life to have liked one of the Grand Han's princes. Now she liked Long Chen, but because of that stain, she felt inferior, feeling like she wasn't a match for him. Hence, she would rather live out her days alone. Her reaction upon seeing Long Chen further proved that. However, she didn't allow herself to have any fanciful dreams. This made Xia Yunchong's heart ache for her, but he was also helpless. The things called emotions were sometimes simply unsolvable. Brother Yunchong, what's happening with the Grand Han? Are they provoking you? Asked Long Chen, getting to the point. Xia Yunchong's expression immediately sank. Even Xia Yolua's expression became unsightly. Fu, Xia Yunchong wanted to swear, but he didn't end up saying it in front of his sister. However, there was a verb and a noun in the swear he wanted to make. These shameless bastards ended up finding a nest full of bastards. And now, more and more bastards come out to humiliate us. I wanted to use martial force to crush them. Those idiots, They're just asking for a beating, raged Xia Yuncheng. If this wasn't the wine god palace, he might have crushed the table in his anger. My imperial father says that this matter isn't so simple. The Grand Han is now just a pretense, and dealing with them is useless. We have to find a way to handle whoever is acting behind the scenes, or anything else would be useless. Acting rashly would only make things worse. Longchen, what do you think? Asked Xia Yuluo. Me? I've got an idea. Let's go. Time is tight and this mission's important. Longchen stood. It seemed that he was destined to always be working. Now he would have to be a free fighter again. The three of them left the Wine God Palace and were very quickly surrounded by a group of experts wearing the Grand Han's robes. They numbered in the 50s and were all young soul transformation experts. Their leader was even a rank 9 celestial. He was of medium build and had shoulder-length hair. The thing about him that gave the deepest impression was his large face. His face was very large, or perhaps it should be called wide. For normal people, 2 hands would be enough to cover their face, but this person would need 3 hands. Xia Yuncheng, what do you think you're doing? This person killed people of my Grand Han repeatedly, and you're actually walking with him? Is this your public provocation toward my Grand Han? You want a war between our 2 nations? Demanded the rank 9 celestial. Clearly, this person was finding trouble for Xia Yuncheng, infuriating him. These fellows always kept saying that the Grand Xia was provoking the Grand Han, that they wanted war, all while clearly aware that the Grand Xia didn't want a war. The Grand Xia knew how frightening war was. Many people would die. War was not a crafty trick, it was barbaric plunder. The goal was to get the most benefits through fighting. But whether you won or lost, the ones who suffered the most were always the innocent commoners. Just how many true experts could the Grand Xia and Grand Han really utilize in a war? Their main force would still depend on their army. And where did that army come from if not the commoners? The pain of the battlefield would fall on them. The Grand Xia was profoundly aware of how much pain war brought. Only idiots like the Grand Han would repeatedly say that they wanted a war whenever they didn't get what they wanted. Because the Grand Xia had simply endured, the Grand Han had continuously increased their provocations, thinking that the Grand Xia was afraid of them. That was what infuriated Xia Yuncheng the most. Before Xia Yuncheng could even reply, Longchen slapped that rank 9 celestial across his large face. He spun through the air in a beautiful arc, landing in the distance. Did your parents never teach you not to point at others when speaking to them? Snorted Longchen. If it was before, perhaps he would have directly launched a sudden attack to kill, because a rank 9 celestial would have posed some threat to him. Now that the Divine Gate star had grown stronger along with the other 4 stars, Longchen's power was so great that he no longer cared about rank 9 celestials. Only Empyreans could be his opponents. As for this rank 9 celestial, he was nothing more than a clown. Longchen might not care about rank 9 celestials, but that didn't mean that other people didn't. Even Xia Yuncheng and Xia Yuluo jumped in shock. Longchen was even stronger than the legends. That rank 9 celestial had only just landed when Longchen appeared in front of him like a phantom. Longchen pressed a finger right against his head. Do you want to live or do you want to die? Lightning revolved around Longchen's finger. It could erupt at any moment. Who are you? The rank 9 celestial didn't even dare to move. He was pale, shocked and infuriated. He hadn't expected such a terrifying expert to appear in the Grand Xia. Longchen once more slapped him, sending him flying. His face was originally large, but now it was swelling even larger. He coughed up blood, and half his teeth were knocked out. His head was buzzing so hard that he couldn't even form the will to resist. Longchen's finger pressed against his head once more. If you answer besides the point again, I guarantee that you won't see tomorrow's sun. Tell me, do you want to live or do you want to die? I want to live. The rank 9 celestial was now completely terrified. He wasn't able to resist at all, and his life was completely in Longchen's hands. No one could save him. Where do you come from? Demanded Longchen. I'm from, think well. You'll only have one chance. As soon as you lie, you'll lose your chance at living, said Longchen coldly. I'm from the Grand Han, you're asking for it? The lightning runes on Longchen's finger began to shine brightly, and a terrifying pressure descended. I'm not lying. I really am. They are the ones who were invited over. I'm really a native of the Grand Han. If you don't believe me, just look at my signature large face and you'll know. The rank 9 celestial pointed at his own face in terror. The Grand Han's faces were a bit large, but this person's face was definitely an exaggeration. They were all invited? Invited from where? Demanded Longchen. The fact that this rank 9 celestial would bring up his own face at the end meant that he might be telling the truth. Only now did the rank 9 celestial realize that he had said something he shouldn't have, and he gulped. The thunder force on Longchen's finger brightened once more. They come from many places. They're all from other regions, cried out the rank 9 celestial. Longchen nodded. That seemed to be true. If they came from the eastern Xian region, people would have long since found mistakes in their identity. Even if they were disciples from secluded sects, there couldn't possibly be this many experts. They came from other regions. That was about what Longchen had guessed. It was just that he didn't know their goal. What was the point of all this? To use the Grand Han to provoke the other 4 nations, who would benefit from a war between the 4 ancient nations? Or were they testing the Wine God Palace? Die! Just as Longchen was considering this, the rank 9 celestial, who had been trembling in terror, suddenly unleashed his aura, and his heavenly Dao runes surged into existence.